UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Very good afternoon to you. Welcome to Monday's Drive. Thank you to Ian Collins, back from Bulgaria, back from skiing, and with a tan to knock the spots off anybody. The main man back tomorrow afternoon between 1 and 4. The chair's a bit low. I'm going to try and we'll do it while we're on. Doesn't matter. Welcome to the show. Hope you had a great weekend. I spent it playing golf with my son rather badly. The sun is out, the sky's blue, and everybody, frankly, is in a very good mood. Unless, of course, you're in business or you own stocks and shares, because apparently the world is on its backside. Donald Trump is causing Armageddon. Stocks, shares, mortgages, bank rates, but don't you fret, my darlings, because Sir Keir Starmer, our undoubtedly talentless leader, has got an idea. He's going to revamp net zero. What a load of old rubbish. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about this Red Arrow story. It doesn't really make any difference to me. What do they say? The Prime Minister has just denied claims that Britain's Red Arrow's display team might replace its iconic fleet with Russian-designed jets. I said it to Ian. I'll say it to you. They were red anyway. Is it a massive story? Not really. I'm more interested in... this is brilliant. Do you know about the snooker? Do you know about the pool game, Ryan? Brilliant. Ryan's looking very miserable today. I'll tell you why in a sec. All transgender women pool final. A professional women's pool tournament has been hit by protest after the final was contested by two transgender players. Harriet Haynes and Lucy Smith faced off, is that what they call it? In the Ultimate Pool Women's Pro Series event 2 at Robin Park Leisure Centre in Wigan on Sunday, having each beaten 4 female opponents. Critics labelled the event preposterous before accusing the sport of cheating on social media. Former Olympic swimmer and our friend Sharon Davis called it bloody ridiculous and grossly wrong in every single way. I mean, sorry, an all transgender female... that's tennis when you get new balls, isn't it? Tennis. What do you make of that story? 0344 499 1000. If you were, by the way, from Monday afternoon believing that actually the world hasn't gone nuts and you're only interested in tariffs, I'll do my best, I'll be serious. But I like this other story, apart from the transgender pool. Listen to this. Doctor Who is the latest show to be hit with a trigger warning. Apparently, the aliens are discriminatory. The caution comes on a new 4-part animation. Viewers are alerted to the savages featuring alien beings and fantasy violence. And the British Board of Film Classification says that episodes include verbal references. Basically, if somebody's an alien and you call them an alien, that could upset them. It's a bloody television show. What is wrong with people? Oh, God, we're only 5 minutes in and already I'm moaning. Anyway, there you go. Doctor Who's got a trigger warning. The Red Arrows might fly in Russian planes. The two transgender pool players played in an all-women's final. Suella Braverman calls for the jailed mother to... This is a great story as well, by the way. I'd love your take on this, because the Tories and Labour at loggerheads on this. Former Home Secretary Suella Braverman has called for the release of a mum jailed for a social media comment in the wake of the Southport riots, of course. Murders, actually. The Tory MP said the 31-month jail sentence handed to Lucy Connolly last year was excessive. She claimed the childminder is the victim of a politicised two-tiered justice system and should not be in prison. Not when you hear some of the stories on this show and some of the stories on this station about people who commit crimes and stay. What do you make of that? Do you agree with Suella? Do you agree with the Red Arrows? Do you agree that two transgender women can play in a pool final? Do you actually care about the tariffs? Whatever you want to talk about, it's very simple, my friends. It's 0344 499 1000. You can see it on the screens right now. If you want to send a WhatsApp, by the way, team are here, all lined up. Jodie's on the calls. Ryan, lanky Ryan, who came third in the Grand National with his tip. He was very excited. He texted me. He's here. Send him a WhatsApp. Start your WhatsApp with Jezza had the winner, you idiot. 0344 499 1000. You can also text us throughout the afternoon. 87222. Start your message with the word talk. I should have come in the studio earlier. The chair is too low. The heating is too high. But we'll sort it out. Let's not stress. Something to worry about. We're here until 7 o'clock. We say a very good afternoon to the newly betrothed. You see what I've done there? This man, our friend, James Price, the last time we spoke to him, he was a single man. Now look at the smile if you're watching. He's a married man. Congratulations, JP. How are you?
Thank you very much, my friend. I've got here my new bit of bling that I'm showing off. Oh. I find myself with this ring here. I'm fiddling with it and playing with it like I'm Gollum in Lord of the Rings. I can't get enough of it.
On a serious note, because we like happiness, because there isn't much bloody happiness in the world right now. How was it? How did it go? Did you cry?
There may have been a few manly Churchillian tears that I had to blink back at various points.
Tears.
Stoic.
We say congratulations to me. I saw a picture of Mrs. P, and you're a friend of mine, but you are punching, son. Let's be perfectly honest. You are, aren't you? You know you are. We're both
absolutely punching. I am. Yeah, 100%.
Congratulations. Now, I missed you when you were away on your mini-moon, and I appreciated the invite. I'm sorry I couldn't do what I had to do, but here's the thing that I need you to help me out, because I see a succession of shows, and I understand the world is apparently up in arms. The FTSE, the Nasdaq, everything's, all shares are dropping, everybody's concerned the world's going to end. I sat here last week and I was trying to make sense of it to myself and say that this man is simply trying to do what he believes is best for the United States. But it's certainly starting to impact on people in the United Kingdom. Sir Keir Starmer's response to this today is to say, the car industry, it's OK, we won't set that target of being net zero by a certain date. We'll push it back so you can still have a diesel car. Now, call me boring and old-fashioned, but in the middle of a world global financial crisis, that's pretty pathetic, isn't it, JP?
It seems like pretty thin gruel, doesn't it, given the turmoil and everything that's going on at the moment. It's struck me as very interesting that people's responses to the tariff story, as big and important as it definitely is, it's a bit like one of those Rorschach tests, you know, and you sort of see ink splodges and you're asked to see what you can see on there. And I think that for most people, obviously, they'll see, you know, they'll see their parents. No, I won't go what I see when I look at a Rorschach test. But
yes,
you look at the tariff response and you think to yourself, yes, this proves every kind of policy I've always wanted to do anyway is the right course of action. So you see left-wing people saying, oh, well, this has proven why I'm right all along. Anti-Brexit people say this is why I'm right all along, whatever it may be. I think the difference is, of course, that I'm right and that everything that I've been saying all along is actually the response to the Trump tariffs, which is to have, you know, most of our power still lies in our own hands to get away from overtaxing and over-regulating businesses and all the rest of it. And actually, for once, Starmer seems like he might just about be right, even in a very small way, in that, yes, if you do keep putting excess regulations on car companies, on anything else, it makes it much more difficult for them to do business and they struggle. He seems to have realized this finally in this one particular area when it comes to cars. Maybe he'll extrapolate the lesson of this and learn it in every other sense as well.
Why? All right, explain this to me. Let's start with the United Kingdom, but the rest of the world. Why doesn't the rest of the world go, right, whatever we think of this man, and many people think he's barking mad, he has vowed, in fact, he stood and got elected and said, I'm going to make sure that I do right by the American people. By the way, I bet nobody said this on this station because it only happened 7 minutes ago. The latest opinion poll of his approval rating, do you know this? This will tell you everything you need to go. His approval rating in the last 7 days in the United States, read this 7 minutes ago, has gone from 49% to 53%, OK? So whilst the rest of the world recalls in horror, the people that voted for Donald Trump, like them or loathe them, are saying he's doing his best for us. Why is this not, JP, a chance for our leaders, our country, our government, our businesses to go, listen, we'll let Europe have a trade war with him. This is a fantastic chance for us to prove that we are competitive, that we make good things, that we're productive. Why don't we use this as the beginning of perhaps, if you like, a new approach? But we don't. Everybody's walking around bitching whilst this man, in their mind, is playing God with their finances. Make it up yourself. I don't understand. Am I missing the point? I must be, somehow.
No, I don't think so. I think this is a good opportunity for the Labour government to change course. The best time for them to change course was the day after they got elected, and the next best time is now. I worry that some of the utterances that we're hearing out of them are the wrong responses. I've actually been heartened to see that they're not going to try and reciprocate, as you say. A trade war benefits absolutely nobody at all. And it is the case, and we've talked about this a lot before, that the United Kingdom is probably first in the queue, or the line, as the Americans would call it, to get ourselves a good trade deal. And you can see, if people watching on the screen now can see this, I mean, the numbers of the reciprocal tariffs between different countries are slightly bonkers. You know, there is a 10% tariff leveled against an island that is inhabited only by penguins, for example.
Yes.
And whilst the UK has got away with a 10% tariff, the poor Falklanders, I think, got kind of 48% or something. So there's some peculiar maths here and certain victims in there. I think that it is true that Trump has been angry for a very long time about the fact that other countries get to put tariffs on against America, and that America hasn't responded as strongly as he would like them to. And hopefully that this is all just a kind of 4D chess, shadow boxing in terms of trying to get all of those barriers down and allowing competition to come along again. If you think that you're so weak as an American economy that you cannot survive in the modern world without erecting protections against yourself, then that says more about the weakness of American manufacturing and the economy in general than anything else. You know, America wins when it is world beating and when it's exposed to competition, the same as the UK. And let's just remember that the European Union has had a great big tariff protective barrier around itself for a very long time. That's kind of the point of it. So to see all the people who were cheering on the European Union now say, oh, Orange Man bad, is a bit rich.
I would like to say to the 17 people that listen to Jez's Drive Time on Talk, I'm very happy if you want to call about the tariffs. I'm not your expert, but if it's concerning you, fine. But for me, there is bread and butter to do in the next 3 hours, JP. 0344 499 1000. I'm going to read you 2 texts. We say good afternoon to Dennis and also to Kenny. Dennis says, Jezza, Suella Braverman clearly doesn't understand how the justice system or the injustice system works. Our left-wing judges think that 31 months is perfectly acceptable sentence for tweeting some hurty words. This is Lucy Connolly. Otherwise, there'd be space in our prisons for convicted paedophiles like Hugh Edwards. Something tells me they have got it wrong. Kenny from Edinburgh bracks it up. Lucy Connolly, nasty words, 31 months. Hugh Edwards, producing and sharing child pornography, zero jail time. I'd love to hear Labour explain how this isn't two-tier justice. In what bloody world is being involved in child pornography or being an actual paedophile not more serious than being a gob, whatever? This is the story that I want to talk about today, JP. Former Home Secretary Suella Braverman has called for the release of her mother, Lucy Connolly, jailed for the social media comments in the wake of the Southport murders. The Tory MP said the 31-month jail sentence handed to Lucy was excessive. She claimed the childminder is the victim of a politicised two-tier justice system and should not be in prison. She's been made an example to intimidate others into silence. I'm going to stick my head right on the line and I'll get slagged off left, right and centre. Some of what she said, deplorable, but surely somebody would think that there are ways to deal with that rather than throwing somebody in prison for 31 months when, and I'm going to pick it up from Kenny in Edinburgh, when somebody like Hugh Edwards is walking free. It makes no sense, JP. It doesn't.
No, you're completely right. It doesn't. Look, we can't defend people who express desires for violence, right? And in some ways, that's a little bit what this woman did.
Yep.
Her evident frustration boiled over. I think she went for a walk after she wrote these horrid things and then went and deleted it sort of straight away when a kind of cooler head, got the better of her.
Yeah.
And I think that fair enough.
What about educating somebody like that rather than throwing them in the slammer? Educate them, make them attend a course, go to spend time with the people that she was slagging off. I don't condone anything she says, and I think it's very easy for people to go, oh, you're condoning. No, I'm not. I'm not condoning it at all. What I'm saying is if you look at the wider example, Hugh Edwards is a perfect example. First 2 texts of the day have said the same thing. How's he walking free then?
Yeah, no, this is exactly right. And this is what happens when it feels like justice is being skewed. Somebody's thumb is on the scale of justice here, and it seems completely unfair. If in a world in which there's almost no crime, then this was one of the only crimes going on of this woman saying, let's bomb the mosque or whatever she was saying, then fine, you can throw the book at her. Yep. If that's the only problem going on, but I still think, as you say, educating her on why that's unacceptable would be
completely
better.
Unacceptable and needs educating. But 31 months in jail is not going to change how she sees that. And also she's a mother. This is what I don't understand. And I put that of Lucy Connolly against the other story of the day, which is a jihadi bride who travelled to Syria to join ISIS terrorists could return to the UK after immigration judges backed her. They ruled that the Home Office should no longer block her because she needs medical care and has a son. Now, this is where I patently don't agree with many people and don't belong here, because so we're going to allow I don't care her religion, but she was going to become she was going to marry, okay, and join the ISIS terrorist group, but she's going to be allowed back to England for medical care and because she's got a son. Am I right in saying that Lucy Connolly has children? I think I'm right, aren't I? Check that out for me. So that's just two-tier. That's the worst example, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely right. And you don't have just this example. Last week, two, I was going to call them gentlemen, they're definitely not that, two animals who have been decided are members of Hezbollah, the
Yep.
Lebanese terrorist organization, and tried to start a Hezbollah sect in the UK, were arrested. They're released on bail. So they're allowed, under certain conditions, don't you go around making any more bombs or anything, young men. They're allowed to wander around, not deprived of their liberty. The fact that Lucy Connolly got an actual prison sentence and she's actually serving it is ridiculous. And if you look at some other examples, you get people who commit literally hundreds of offences and they don't actually end up serving a custodial sentence. So this woman, I increasingly think, is a victim of being made an example of for something that would never happen if, by the way, the state and all parties running the state had done a better job of integrating communities.
Yep.
And of actually bearing down on terrorism, whether it's organised.
And James and I would like to make the point again, okay? Again, because it's important. We're not condoning what she wrote. What we're saying is there has to be a better way of dealing with it. What's this story? Hospital... Oh, yes, this is my other one. Honestly, see, Ryan does it. So, the tariffs bore me. I mean, there's nothing I can do about the tariffs. Cash-strapped hospitals have written off £256.4 million owned by foreign patients because of failures to properly check they were entitled to free NHS treatment. Now, last week you were on your mini-moon, we discovered that we were talking about the NHS and, should it have more money? And we had this ridiculous story given to me that we spend £83 million a year on interpreters. Can you imagine that you and I go to any country when we go, well, I'd like a free operation. Well, you can't. And also, I can't speak your language, so I'd like you to pay for it. Well, you can't. And I'd like well, you can't. What is wrong with us? What is wrong with us? It's ludicrous.
Right. Well, and there's a very simple policy solution here, right? That you cannot access various services from the government, whether it's healthcare or education or benefits in welfare benefits and things like that, and other services too, unless you can speak a certain amount of English or perhaps Welsh in a few places. Now, imagine if we were to enact that, the most sensible policy idea in the world. Not only would you save lots of money, like I mentioned there, the 250 million quid from people who weren't entitled to receive NHS payment, which, by the way, is your taxes, the people who are listening and watching at home or at work or on the way back or whatever. It's money that's not going on cancer drugs for people who paid into the system all their life. But you would also have a wonderful byproduct where people who are able to sponge off the system and have done so for so long, despite never having bothered to learn the damn language of the country in which they are receiving such wonderful largesse, they might actually be induced to leave of their own accord. Now, I think a policy of making English language a requirement, as well as banning certain other disgraceful medieval cultural practices, would help actually get rid of a lot of people we just frankly don't want in this country, who've not assimilated, who've not integrated, who've got no desire to, and at the moment have no need to, because they're sat inside communities where they only see their own people of other recent arrivals, feel no tie to this country at all, and yet we still give them free money to sit around doing nothing all day but causing problems.
I honestly, and I came in all happy. You're married. The sun is out, and yet again, straight away. To finish you off, do you want to do Doctor Who or two transgender women in the final of a female pool tournament? You can pick your choose. Are you a sort of a Doctor Who fan? Were you or a...
Well, I think in a way they're the same story, aren't they? Really, because the storyline of the new series of Doctor Who, the first episode was based around the fact that one character was transgender, and therefore he, she, they were more special and better than everybody else, and therefore that specialness helped them save the universe. And it seems that same wonderful specialness helped these two chaps get to the final of the women's pool. So it's all some wonderful trans...
That's what I love. I love about James Price. He's gone those two chaps to get... This is actually... It was a professional women's pool tournament. It was the Ultimate Pool Women's Pro Series event. It was at Robin Park Leisure Centre in Wigan at the weekend. Sharon Davis, good friend of the show. I'd love to try and get her on later. We can give her a call because it'd be great. She says it's bloody ridiculous and grossly and utterly wrong. We're there again, though, aren't we? And I said something last week. We'll finish with this. Actually, people might disagree, but I've always thought it's great when we argue for women's rights. I think that's absolutely spot on. And yet, all the people who argue for women's rights go very quiet and don't, to my mind, protect the very women who have been practising all their lives to be pool players. And two blokes have come along and put I don't know whether it wouldn't happen in America. And it's unfair. And Sharon has fought long and hard about female athletes, of course. And it must be so bloody just depressing if you've trained all your life just to be knocked out like that, to be honest.
Yeah, absolutely right. You know, how would you feel if you worked really hard on all these things? You see these stories happening around the world. And okay, pool is one example, and that is sad and bad enough. But it's when people have been sort of forced and cajoled by social pressure to go into boxing rings and wrestling arenas and damn rugby pitches, right?
Yeah.
Like if I suddenly start saying that my name is Sharon or something, and I come running at you, I'm a 6'3" big hairy git, right? And I'm playing in a women's rugby match, I'm going to do some damage, and it's not fair to say to people, "Oh no, you're very."
Jamina, don't be horrible, Jamina. Don't be horrible. You'd be a marvellous female rugby player. Listen, we congratulate you. Loads of people already. Congratulations to JP. Well done to James. Respect to him and his wife. Fantastic. Enjoy the mini-moon, my friend. We will speak to you very soon. And thank you so much and congrats again. James Price, former government special advisor. So, look, let's be honest. We can talk about tariffs. The world is in turmoil. The US markets opened, but dropped completely. Another day of turmoil. The FTSE 100 fell down. European share prices have plunged. People are terrified about all sorts of things. Donald Trump says it's medicine you're going to have to take. I am not wiping your backsides anymore. Starmer, what's he going to do? Oh, yes, we don't have to buy a net zero car for a while. I don't know whether that works or not. I'm more excited about, well, not excited, angry about the jihadi bride who can return to the United Kingdom because she's got a son, whereas the woman who made hurty words, which were wrong after the Southport murders, she's serving 31 months in prison, despite the fact that she's got a child. You can't watch Doctor Who without a trigger warning nowadays. The NHS has lost £250 million owed by people who shouldn't have had the treatment, but they didn't tell us because we didn't check. And the pool tournament in Wigan, where two men entered a female pool tournament and won together. So that's my afternoon. Join me. 0344 499 1000. Text to 87222. This is Tour Drive.
And, you know, we have got meant to be representatives of society in Parliament, and all sorts of accusations are being made at all sorts of people in this day and age. We are in a much more litigious age. We're in a much more cancel culture age, when it's commonplace now for people, and rightly, to speak up if they feel they've been treated or the law has not been followed. But it is also true, sadly, that some people take advantage of the situations they find themselves in.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back, 4:28. Monday afternoon, you're very welcome. This is Talk Drive. My wires are sticking out. It's all gone a bit wrong this afternoon. I don't know what's going on. But listen, this is what Ryan just said to me, right? Ryan just said to me, it's very, very exciting. The King and Queen have arrived in Italy. They're about to disembark the plane. This is what Ryan does to me. And he went, do you think they'd have got any trouble getting their luggage to go, like, you know, overhead and everything? Do you think they have to go through customs? No, they're absolutely fine. Lammy's there. He loves a bit of pasta. He's waiting. Anyway, listen, welcome along. Loads to talk about on Talk Drive. As ever, you know the number. You know how to get part of the show. 0344 499 1000. Text to 87222. Let's go to Surrey. It's posh there, and he's called Henry. Hello, Henry, on Talk Drive. How are you?
Very well, thank you, Jeremy. How are you?
I'm all right. You're going to destroy everything I believe in. You want to talk about tariffs. Make more sense of it than me, mate, because I don't understand. What do you want to say?
Well, the first thing to say, I think, is ultimately Donald Trump was, of course, democratically elected in a landslide victory, actually, to impose tariffs against other countries and their goods coming in.
Yep.
And ultimately, I think Trump he's anti-unfair trade, not necessarily anti-free trade, and that's the difference. And in terms of the UK, we've been hit with the 10%, which is lower than the EU's 20%. And I think that is because President Trump wanted to deal with Britain, but we failed to roll out the red carpet for him. And so now we're past that point. But I think Starmer is right to relax some of the rules to protect Britain, then kind of oppose retaliatory tariffs, because we don't have a huge trade surplus with the US, but Germany does. And countries that do have a trade surplus tend to lose in trade wars.
Is it fair to say? I remember voting, and I've always been very honest in the show. I remember voting to leave the European Union because I hated the fact that seemingly this country was told how it should trade, what it should charge, what it could sell, how it could make things, and all of that, right? I always believed that Brexit was a chance to almost go into ourselves as an island and prove that we were competitive and we could make business very successful. Is it not fair to say what I said last week, which was right? There will be a trade war with Europe. This is our opportunity. Why are we seemingly incapable in this country? We seem to concentrate on the things that don't matter. Why is this not a God-given opportunity to make a deal with them and become competitive and improve the way our business is viewed in the world? Why is there so much negativity? I understand about share prices and all that, but is this not a chance?
Yeah, absolutely. I think you're right. And the first thing for Starmer to decide is he's talked about the Brexit reset with the EU. Mm-hmm. And so the first thing for him to decide is, does he want to pursue closer ties with an arguably dying European Union, or fulfill the reasonable expectation of Brexit, which, number one, was to deregulate and create a dynamic economy, and two, to decrease migration numbers. But that's a separate issue. And I think that's the point, is ultimately Donald Trump, we know, is a good operator. And I think there really is some strategy behind the madness of these tariffs. And once the markets kind of adapt to them, I think all of it is symbolic of the kind of new world order that we should be expecting to come.
Thank you very much indeed. You're a very kind man. Thank you very much indeed. Henry in Surrey, 0344 499 1000. JK says, Simon, with regards to Trump's tariffs, possibly there will be long-term benefits for the United States manufacturing, although a lot of people seem sceptical about this. The point for me, Jez, is we aren't American. We're British. We should be concerned with UK manufacturing, not American. I haven't checked my pension yet. I daren't bleed and look. I wouldn't go if I was you. 0344 499 1000. Natasha, all I know is that when I hear Starmer's drone-like voice on the radio, I get this almost overwhelming urge to throw the radio across the room. Does anybody else suffer from this unnamed syndrome? I think plenty do. Margaret, Suella Braverman is absolutely spot on right about Lucy Connolly, right? They should let her out now. The papers should get behind the story. This is, if you're just tuning in, this is the story of Lucy Connolly, 42, who was given 31 months in prison last year for some pretty outrageous stuff that she said post the Southport murders. I don't in any way condone what she said, but surely there's an example of somebody who should be educated and do community service and give something back to the community that she was so rude. Because on the same day, we discovered that a jihadi bride who went to Syria to join ISIS is going to be allowed back to the United Kingdom because she needs medical attention and she's a mother. That is a prime example, is it not, of two-tier justice. And it's alive and well, unfortunately, in the United Kingdom. 0344 499 1000. We're going to go to the main man. The chief political correspondent for The Sun. You know him as Mr. Elsom. I know him as Jackie Boy. How are you, sir?
Not bad, Jeremy, not bad. How are you?
I didn't see you at Cheltenham.
I couldn't go in the end. I was here in Parliament, manning the ship, writing for His Majesty's Sun newspaper, while my boss, Harry Cole, you know as Hazard Boy, was there gallivanting around, losing lots of money, apparently.
Well, listen, I wouldn't say gallivanting. He was certainly in a different outfit every day. Now, Jack, I want you to do for me what I've been saying to people all afternoon. Let's put this in layperson's terms. I really liked what Henry just said from Surrey, and also that text. Trump got elected to do this. He's defending the American economy and the American people. You'll know what I'm about to tell you was right. It was only an hour or so ago. His ratings, his approval rating, has gone up 4 points in the last 7 days. Why are we so fixated on Donald Trump? Why don't we use this as a fantastic opportunity, Jack Elsom, to build up our manufacturing, become competitive and lead the world again? Why don't we see a positive in this? Help me out.
Well, I think you've definitely identified something there, which is that politicians all the time are accused of one thing more than anything else, and that's breaking their promises. This is something which you can't level at Donald Trump, especially regarding tariffs, because not just in this election, but as old as the hills, Donald Trump has been going on about how America needs tariffs to protect American jobs and American livelihoods and their manufacturing sector. So this is something he's been saying for a long time, and people who are now acting surprised that he's actually followed through with it, I think need a bit of a reality check. I think what countries are grappling with at the moment is what he's going to do next and whether he's in a position to negotiate, because the US administration has said that since last Wednesday, when they unleashed all these tariffs, many countries have come to them and are now seeking a negotiation to try and, if not reduce the amount they are paying in tariffs, then at least then do away with them altogether. Keir Starmer has been trying to strike this economic prosperity deal, which we understand is sitting on Donald Trump's desk. So I think that many countries are, one, considering whether or not they can do some sort of deal with the US to be able to get a fairer rate, or whether or not they are going to try and retaliate. And it seems to me that the UK government at the moment is in a position, and while they are obviously threatening retaliatory tariffs, it seems at the moment that they're going to be in no position to do that because, as Keir Starmer, I think, rightly says, it will make the whole thing a lot worse.
I was a salesman, don't laugh, right? Years and years and years ago, 40 years ago.
I watched Life Stories.
Thank you very much. And here's what I know, right? So Donald Trump's the big cheese, right? Donald Trump is the man who's going to shout the loudest. The reason he's done this is so they all come to the table and he gets the goddamn deal that he wants, right? What I'm trying to say is this not a prime example for somebody in this country or other countries to have the balls to stand and say, this is what I want, this is what you want, let's find some common ground? There is no doubt that Donald Trump is Donald Trump, he's not going to change. But of course he wants a deal, he's done this. So they go to the White House with their tails between their legs and he gets more. Somebody once told me about business deals, the only thing that ever works is if all sides leave the table thinking they've got something from it. With Donald Trump, he'll want to leave the table thinking he's got the most. I just wish that instead of sitting around going, oh, this is a dreadful man. I was on a train today and sitting in the same carriage with two bloody Canadians. I resisted saying, what's it like being the 51st state? All they did the whole journey was Donald Trump's this and Donald... It's fine, I get that, right? But he ain't going anywhere. So we need to come up, I would have thought, as a country, as a world, with a strategy. Play the game. Play the game. Because that's all I'm saying. That's how I see it.
Yeah, and I know what? I think you said something very interesting earlier, which is that Brexit has given us this opportunity to be nimble, to act in our own interests. If you look at the EU at the moment, their heads of government are meeting in Luxembourg today to try and thrash out a response to Donald Trump's tariffs.
We're not in the EU, so I'd be using that. I'd be going behind their backs and getting a deal before the EU. That's the whole point of Brexit.
Exactly. And the different states of the European Union themselves look utterly divided. Some of them want to impose retaliatory tariffs. Some of them want to try and cool the situation. And the fact that we are outside not only have a lesser tariff hit than them, obviously 20% compared to our 10%, means that I think we are in a much better position to try and strike a deal here. We know that Trump is an Anglophile. He's spoken of his love of Britain before. To be fair to Keir Starmer, I think he has built a relationship with Donald Trump. And so if we manage to get this economic prosperity deal over the line and it actually does away with any tariffs, then what a great position we are in to do more trade with America.
And that's exactly what you and I are saying. What do you make of that, team? 0344 499 1000, text 87222. I agree with Jack Elsom. Jack, very quickly, couple of mad stories. Suella Braverman today calling for the release of Lucy Connolly, the mother jailed for 31 months for some pretty excessive words that she used after the Southport murders. But for me, Suella Braverman has a very salient point. I don't condone anything that Lucy Connolly said, but I would have thought our justice system would be better served by educating her, doing some community service within the community that she was so rude about. But on the same day, and you've had this in your wonderful newspaper, The Sun, Jihadi bride could return to the UK. A jihadi bride who travelled to Syria to join ISIS could return to the UK after immigration judges backed her because she needs medical care and has a child. How do you expect the British people to not listen to that and go, well, that's just two-tier, that's ridiculous?
Yeah, I think you're right. The most right-minded people in this country will think that what she said after the Southport riots were pretty appalling, shocking. If they need punishment, then so be it. But then you're right, that people will also look around and see other cases, what look like complete two-tier justice. I mean, we in The Sun, for a long time now, have been documenting cases of paedophiles who are convicted of paedophilia and essentially walk free.
First two texts of the day went, so she's in jail for 31 months and that paedophile, Hugh Edwards, is sitting in a £3 million house with a BBC pension. Absolutely nailed on, Jack. The Sun's been saying it for ages and the Sun's right. That's ludicrous by anybody's standards, right?
Yeah, and people just can't get their heads around it. They're absolutely baffled. And, you know, what she said on social media was absolutely shocking and appalling. I don't think anyone really would quibble with that. But then people look at absolute bonkers application of the laws, which lets paedophiles walk free from court, go around and live their lives with a suspended sentence. And a lot of people just look at it and, you know, I think the two-tier phrase is often bandied around. But actually, if you look at these two cases, people will go, this is absolutely completely different applications of the law. And most people would think that, you know, being a paedophile is probably a bit worse than saying something.
Just absolutely, but not condoning either. But to me, madness. Yeah. And then another thing, and I know the Sun's been behind this. Last week we were talking, you were busy, but I was talking to Harry about this. The NHS, you know, the big argument, does it need more money? I discovered with Harry's help last week that over 80 million quid is spent on interpreters. Today we discover cash-strapped hospitals are written off over 250 million quid owed by foreign patients because of failures to check them properly, that they weren't entitled to free NHS treatment in the first place. And again, it's only Monday and I don't want to hyperventilate. Try telling that to a person who can't see a doctor, an old person waiting for an operation, somebody who needs cancer treatment, whose treatment has been put back and back and back. It's ludicrous. Ludicrous.
Just the eye-watering amounts of waste in this country is just staggering. And you know, Rachel Reeves talks about potentially having to hike taxes a little bit, cut spending there. There is an enormous amount of waste here. And it does seem that we are a bit of a soft touch when it comes to this sort of stuff. Like if I went to America and got into a bit of difficulty and needed a hospital and then just left the country, they'd come after me with relentless ferocity. And the fact that we seem to have just written this massive bill off, I think just speaks volumes at the moment about just how willing we are to fritter money in this country. Oh, what I
love about your newspaper, The Sun, and about Talk is that actually the one word that I read every day in The Sun, and in between the article, it's priorities. And the priority, I think, for British people right now, and a lot of people jump up and down and say, that's not fair, Joes. It is. The priorities when you are skint are to look after your own. We cannot even afford the interest on the debts we've got. And people will hear that people owe the NHS 250 grand, that an ISIS terrorist woman can be allowed back, but a woman with hurting words that we don't condone. It's all about priorities. They all seem wrong. But listen, the big question before you go, Grand National Saturday, did you have the winner? I did.
You know what? I caught the last furlong, I think, of the Grand National. I completely forgot it was on, turned it on. I didn't place a bet on it, but...
I'm not even going to tell you that I backed the horse. To tell you exactly what happened, I'm at my best mate's house, grounds. I go out there with Henry, Newcastle playing golf. He does a sweepstake. There were 32 tickets sold. There's 35 horses, 33 tickets. There's 2 left. Nobody else won. It was £5 a ticket. He said, I'll have one. He picks out whatever. I picked out a horse, didn't even look at it. As they jumped the final fence, because he's written it all out, I go to him, we watched it and tell him, who's got Knit Rocket? He went, you picked it out this morning. Nice way to win, wasn't it?
Jammy, absolutely jammy. No, I've never had any luck at the races, so now I just keep my wallet closed.
No, yes, yeah, we know that. We've been in the bar with you. Jack Elsom, good man, lovely to have you on, my friend. Chief political correspondent for The Sun, the newspaper, like the radio station Talk, that tells it like it is, talks common sense, talks about what is and should be your priorities. 0344 499 1000. Keep it Talk Drive.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
JHB from 10, and ahead of that, the greatest breakfast show you will ever wake up to. Mike Graham's Morning Glory, back tomorrow morning from 6. We're live across the UK. Talk is the home of common sense and free speech. We welcome your input. 0344 499 1000. The Sun will get you more on this. Is just reporting that Sakira's now said we're not going to have any tax hikes because of Trump's thing. We're just going to be cool. It'll be interesting to see what happens. But I'm more interested in the madness that's engulfing the United Kingdom. It's been a while. There's an organisation, Sex Matters, that speaks more sense than even we do on this station. The Director of Campaigns. Hey, Macarena! Fiona Macarena, how are you?
I'm well, Jeremy. I knew that was coming.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I got it again. Hey, Macarena. Lovely to see you, my darling. Thank you so much indeed for joining us. Obviously, the world is obsessed, it seems, with tariffs and madness and what's going to happen to our pensions and is Donald Trump the devil incarnate? But actually, there still are things happening in this country which, for many, many people, just send them over the edge with this sort of feeling that we're not getting any wiser. In fact, we're getting madder by the day. The story that sort of garnered interest today is a professional women's pool tournament has been hit by mass protests after the final ended up being contested by two transgender players. Harriet Haynes and Lucy Smith faced off in the Ultimate Pool Women's Pro Series Event 2 in Wigan on Sunday, having beaten each beaten 4 female-born opponents. Critics labelled the event preposterous, accusing the sport of cheating on social media, and former Olympic swimmer Sharon Davis, who we know speaks enormous sense, called it bloody ridiculous and grossly wrong in each and every way. Protesters inside the venue shouted, "He's a man and we stand with Lynn Pinches," and held up banners saying, "Save women's sport." Thoughts on that, Fiona?
Well, the Ultimate Pool Group knew this was coming because you mentioned Lynn Pinches, who forfeited a match against one of these players, Harriet Haynes, 18 months ago. And this player, Haynes, who was born male, has been cleaning up the prize money. And now there's another one, Lucy Smith, coming up close behind. So the organisers in pool know this is a problem. The problem they've got is they've been threatened by both sides. So they actually adopted a proper female category in the summer of 2023. And then this player, Harriet Haynes, who's male, threatened them with legal action. And so they withdrew and they reverted to their old self-ID policy. And ever since then, these players have been claiming hundreds and sometimes thousands of pounds in prize money in women's pool. And some of the women have said, well, this is ridiculous, we're not going to play anymore. And some others, some very brave ones, have said, we're going to sue you. So there are 2 lawsuits currently going on. Harriet Haynes, the trans player, is suing one pool organisation that would not let him into the women's events. And a group of women is suing the others, including Ultimate Pool, the organisers of this weekend's event.
I just want to ask you, sex matters to me. It is an organisation that always speaks sense. I don't understand what happens to all the women. I'm going to tread really... Actually, I don't need to tread carefully. You know you well enough. All the women who quite rightly spend years arguing for women's rights to be protected. And I absolutely would agree with that. I hear not a jot from them, Fiona, when we get onto the debate about, transgender people in female toilets. I have a teenage daughter. I'm actually prepared, I don't care what crap I get, to say I don't want that. I don't think it's fair if you are a female sports person who has trained all your life to be cast aside, ousted, beaten or whatever because a man is in your place. I hear nothing from women who stick up for women's rights when it comes to this debate. Why is that, do you think?
Well, we do hear from women, but the answer is a lot of women are intimidated or bullied into keeping quiet. Wow. And even the sports councils themselves, the national sports councils, in their own research have found that. Their own report talks about women who were told they would lose their sponsorship or they would lose their place in the team. There are all kinds of reasons why people don't speak up, but the bottom line is they shouldn't have to. No one should have to put their own career on the line. They shouldn't have to forfeit a match. The sports organisations are responsible for making the rules. They all know they need a women's category. That's why they have one.
Why don't they have? Actually, I'll tell you what we've got. I'd like to include you. It's got a great voice note, apparently, from Simon. Have a listen, Fiona. Simon, go.
For the first time in my life, I find myself not having an issue. What advantage does a man claiming to be a woman have when playing pool? Football, rugby, boxing, running, jumping, throwing heavy objects, yes. But pool? I don't think so.
Fiona?
Well, he's wrong. You know, the law says if there is a difference between the average male and the average female in the sport, then you're allowed to run a women's competition. And all these pool competitions are designated women only. Now, they could say there's no difference, let's just run mixed, but that's not what they're doing. If you think about hitting a pool ball with a cue, particularly if that ball is a little bit further away across the table, men have longer reach, they have more power, they can hit the ball harder. A single shot that we all know, the break, for example, they can scatter the balls much more. So the law says if that's the case, you're allowed to run a women's event. It doesn't have to be a huge difference. It doesn't have to be weightlifting or boxing. It's enough to say we know that male bodies have an advantage on average, and we've given the women a competition of their own so they can win. And the reason for that is to protect them from people like Harriet Haynes and Lucy Smith, who are bringing male advantage into the women's category, and that's why they're cleaning up the prize money.
You know, you said about all sides sue each other, and we're at this sort of point where nobody knows what to do. Why is it not sensible, right, very briefly, whether it's toilets or sports or whatever, to have a category for men and women and a transgender category? Why can't you have a transgender toilet? I don't have a problem with any of that. But I am not, as the father of a teenage girl, going to say that I am happy with a man in a dress with a penis going into a toilet where my teenage daughter is. And I will argue the toss with anybody about that. It's not me being unfair. I'm not going to get into a debate about what I think about it. That's sport. Have a different category. Why is it so difficult for people to understand that?
Well, there are lots of ways they could solve this. I mean, athletics have got a female category and an open category. Yeah. It doesn't have to be a third category. It can just be open. The bottom line is the only people who suffer when this happens is females, because we're the ones who are disadvantaged. So what is important is to protect the female category and then to make everybody welcome. It doesn't matter how you identify. You can call yourself whatever you like. And the same goes for changing rooms and toilets. It's very easy to have a gender-neutral third option. But the problem is, of course, that people who identify as women insist on their right to be validated by going into the women's facilities. And most men know how uncomfortable that makes women.
Listen, I love having you on from Sex Matters. You don't mind me finishing with it. Macarena. Thank you very much indeed, Fiona Macarena, right here on Talk Drive, 8 minutes to 5. You want to be part of the debate? 0344 499 1000. Back in 3.
And, we have got meant to be representatives of society in Parliament, and all sorts of accusations are being made at all sorts of people in this day and age. We are in a much more litigious age. We're in a much more...
Certainly very little they can do in the short term. I think there's going to be some really tough choices.
Age when it's commonplace now for people, and rightly, to speak up if they feel they've been treated or the law has not been followed. But it is also true, sadly, that some people take advantage of the situations they find themselves in.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
5 to 5, straight back to the phone lines. Brand new caller, Jacqueline's in London. Just a couple of minutes, Jacqueline. You're on Talk Drive. Go.
Oh, hello. You were talking about the economy and the tariff effect of the whole world. And the fact that Britain has got a big advantage now because it can go alone, compared to, for example, the European Union.
Yep.
We can do our own, our own deals. But there is something which is actually bothering me, because over the last few days, the pound is actually going down tremendously. And I just don't understand it.
I'm not a financial person, right? I don't understand how markets and things work, but it's all about confidence, it's all about investment. But it's really simple to me, Jacqueline, right? So this man got elected. He won the majority vote. Whatever people tell you, that's what he got to power saying, we have been ripped off for years and I am going to instigate tariffs against the rest of the world. People will call him a bully. Some will say he's a great businessman. He's done what he's done, and he wants them to come crawl into the White House and make a deal. I just think...
I understand all that. It seems quite fair to me that he would like to do that. He's got has the power to do it, and he's got the...
Why would I not? Are you with me, Jacqueline? Why would I not love a Prime Minister or somebody in this country would say, do you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to protect British industry. I'll tell you what I'm going to do. This is Keir Starmer. Instead of raising NI and making it impossible for small business to succeed, I'm going to make it massively easier for you to succeed so you're successful and we all benefit. That's what's needed. We need that approach in this country, don't we?
Yes, indeed. But that is what I'm saying. It is very possible to do it because one is free from all other tackles that there was, or shackled rather. But it still bothers me that in spite of all this, very recently, the pound is going down. And the European Union has been really hit very much harder.
I think it's because we have little confidence and belief, and that's what we need back. Jacqueline, I'd love to talk more, but massively grateful. You're a new caller. Thank you for making it talk. Let's shoot to Basingstoke really quickly. Kevin's on the line. Kev, just a couple of minutes before the news. What do you want to say, pal?
I'll be really quick then. I don't think a trade deal with Trump is worth the paper it's written on. He did one with Canada and Mexico when he was in power last. Saying it was a great deal. Then he the first thing he does when he gets in again is tears that up, says it's a terrible deal, and puts 25% tariffs on.
I know you don't trust the man. I'm not saying I would. I don't think that's the issue. I don't think we need to trust the man. I think we need to stop. I think we need to be proactive instead of reactive. This government has made it virtually impossible with its workers' rights and its NI increases and the problems that it's created for small businesses. That's why people are leaving this country in droves and closing their businesses. If I was Keir Starmer, I'd say, I'm going to show you, mate. I'm going to make it easier for business to flourish. I'm going to make it easier for the pound to recover and people to economically do well. But he's too bloody worried about upsetting the status quo, and he's too busy, I don't know, defending just priorities again. For me, Kev, priorities.
He is worried. The right thing to do would be to call out the damage of Brexit, which has caused £100 billion smaller GDP, and that comes from the OBR, the government.
I think this... Listen, you and I would disagree about this, but I think this country should look at itself and go 20% on Europe, 10% on us. Let's prove to the world and ourselves and our people that we can do better than this. Let's not sit fixated about Donald Trump. I'm sorry to rush you, Kev, but it's time, you know, it's the news, but we appreciate you making the call. That's Kevin Basingstoke. If you want to be on the next hour, Benedict Spence on the way, 0344 499 1000. Text to 87222. Graham says, thank goodness we've got Rachel from accounts who will steer us through these choppy tariff waters. That'll fill me full of confidence. News at 5 is on the way. Text as well, please, 87222. Start your message with the word talk. I'm off for a pee. The news is next. See you in 3.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back, my friends. Hour 2 of Drive for Monday. We're live across the UK. What a fantastically beautiful evening. I mean, I wouldn't be listening to me. I'd be in the pub. I'd be sitting in the garden, which is where Ryan and Jodie and Amy and who's the other person today? Yeah. Gianna, it's very important. She's got the voice of an angel. She's going to be a huge star. 0344 499 1000 is my telephone number. Text, please. 87222. Start your message with the word talk. The world seems utterly fixated on Trump's trade wars. US markets dropping sharply. The FTSE 100 share index going down. People's pensions, people's shares. The whole thing's a catastrophe. Starmer's gone. There won't be tax hikes. Don't have to buy an electric car. Everything will be sort of all right, I think. I obviously come from a different land. I think that we have a lower tariff imposed by a democratically elected man in America who stood on that, defending American people. In fact, his approval rating has gone up in the last 7 days. You need to know that. I think we should now be saying to our government, instead of making it difficult for businesses, you bunch of whatever, you should make it for this NI increase and these workers' rights are making it impossible for small businesses. But small businesses and their success employ people. They create wealth and thus growth. We should be encouraging. This should be a time when Britain shows itself to be, I don't know, successful. But no, we're busy putting trigger warnings on Doctor Who. We're busy losing 250 million out of the NHS because, ready for this? Cash-strapped hospitals have written off over 250 million quid owed by foreign patients because of failures to properly check if they were entitled to free NHS treatment. I mean, what is wrong? This country, priorities, forget Trump a tick. I understand financially. But what about the way the people in this country feel? I mean, this sums it up to me. Becky Rowe, it makes my blood absolutely bulges. I've got to fight to have an operation that I need, but the NHS can waste money and a terrorist bride can come back to this country and get help. Everything's wrong with our priorities. Becky, I couldn't agree more. 0344 499 1000. So much to cram in the next 2 hours. But we start this one with a man who he's like a cashmere cod piece, ladies and gentlemen. He's smoother than anything. We say a very good afternoon. Ryan's just looking at me like, what is wrong with you? Benedict Spence, good afternoon. Have you ever been called a cashmere cod piece before?
I've not, no. Maybe I'll put that in my Twitter bio. Who knows? I mean,
nice.
Yeah,
maybe it could help you. Now, if you're going to come on the show today, we're gonna obviously talk tariffs. I probably have a very different view. You're more intelligent than me. I did see, this was an hour and a half ago, Donald Trump's approval rating in the last 7 days in America has gone from 49% to 53%. He was elected, love him or loathe him, to make America great again, make people's lives more prosperous, safer on the streets, and deal with the immigration problems. Oh, to have somebody like that. The fact of the matter is, to me, you're the expert, the world's watching on and panicking and everybody's thinking, la, la, la. Is this not a fantastic opportunity for this country and our government to go, we're going to grab the bull by the horns here. This guy's just trying to drag us to the table. We've got less tariffs than the EU. We've got a government that's making it impossible for small businesses to be successful. If they change tact on that, maybe we could start making stuff and selling stuff and standing on our own 2 bloody feet. Am I missing the point?
Yeah, it's a tremendous opportunity for every Western country that can sort of sit up, smell the coffee and see the new direction of travel. The problem is, of course, most of them aren't there and they don't want to be going in that direction. You know, they're wedded to the idea of things like net zero and DEI and all of these sorts of things because they think that that's still the ideology du jour and they can't quite get around the fact that it is out of the window in the White House and it's probably not coming back. So if you wanted, this would be a fantastic opportunity. As you point out, we're sort of, you know, the halfway house between Europe and the United States. Our tariff rates are not that high. We could, in fact, probably get them down lower if we agreed on certain arrangements with the United States on certain industries, say things like free speech for tech companies, that sort of thing. So there are wonderful opportunities to be had, but the problem is our political elites, just like those in Europe and across the world, they don't really have the vision. And even those that can sort of see the trajectory, they just don't want to go in that direction. You try and get a Labour MP to sort of throw things like net zero, say, into the long grass because it's good for growth. They don't want to do that.
But here's my point, and you know this far more than me. You say they're wedded to the ideology. They don't want to do this. At what point do these MPs wake up and realise that the British public, again very much in keeping with what I've said for several months on this show, I think people are looking more at their own lives and how government is impacted on them, which is why I think suddenly immigration has been at the forefront of people's minds. 10 years ago, nobody talked about it. I think people are going, hold on a minute, I'm doing everything right, and I can't see a doctor, but a migrant can. I have an opinion. I mean, the story that I base this on today, Benedict, is this: Suella Braverman, love her or loathe her, has called for the release of that mother, Lucy Connolly, the 31-year-old. No, she's 42. She was given a 31-month jail sentence last year for it was pretty excessive what she said after the Southport murders, and nothing that anybody here, myself included, would condone. But she's given 31 months in prison. She's not given community service, made to work with the community that she was so disrespectful. She's thrown into prison, and yet she's got a child, and yet a jihadi bride who travelled to Syria to join ISIS has today found out that immigration judges back her to come back to this country because she needs medical care and has a son. Yeah. Add into the mix that Hugh Edwards, who's a paedophile, and I'll say he can sue me, is walking free, and Lucy Connolly and Suella Braverman has a point here. We just get it wrong. Our priorities are wrong.
Yeah, they are. And you can... you don't even have to go to those extremes, and those very obvious extremes. But the sheer number of petty criminals, thieves, mobile phone thefts, all that sort of thing, the sheer number of people who commit crimes almost every day and simply don't get sentences of this long. Real bread and butter stuff, the stuff that you learn when you're in primary school or when you're a toddler. You don't take things that don't belong to you. You don't break things that don't belong to you. You don't attack people for no good reason, often not even for a good reason. Those people are the ones that are not going to prison at all. But as you say, somebody who sends a tweet, well, an example must be made of that person. Not actually stopping career criminals who make people's lives an absolute misery, but somebody who got caught up in the moment, recognized that what she'd said was, OTT. No, that person has to take up a prison space that should, by rights, be going to a drug dealer, a criminal, a thief. You're right. We've got our priorities completely wrong, and something, you'd think something has to break. And this is the problem. I sort of look at Britain these days. Do you remember Mick McCarthy, the football manager? Yeah. I think it was when he was in charge of the Republic of Ireland, and they were on a really bad run, and somebody asked him, well, Mick, at least it can't get any worse. And he said, no, it can always get worse. And I'm afraid to say that's my attitude with this current set of politicians, because the question is, at what point do they wake up and realise? Genuinely, I wonder if it could get to a point where they actually turn around and realise, or if it's going to take a complete replacement of these people.
But we've been talking about that. That's already, and you're on my wavelength here, because what will happen is they won't listen and they'll be replaced by others. I have said for as long as I've sat here, and then people go, oh, you're favouring Trump. Forget Trump a minute, but would you not love somebody who went, right, I said it last week as well, I've said it every week. This is me, I'm standing, warts and all, I've done this wrong, I've made that mistake, but before I stand, this is what I believe in. It's not going to be easy, and it will be a road, but that's what I want you to elect me on. And if I get elected, I'll do it. And even if I have detractors and people having a go at me, I'm going to do it. That's what he has done. I think the politicians in this country have forgotten that they work for the British people. I genuinely do.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think you only need to see the behaviour of certain people in the Conservative Party and the entitled way that they act, almost as if, just give it time and we'll be back in. Because
they do. You're right. Yeah, they do. Yeah.
There's no sense. I mean, the very fact that they selected Kemi Badenoch as their new leader sort of gives you the impression, they think as long as we can just go for a sort of a box-ticking exercise for somebody who talks tough on woke, but never actually comes out with a policy. She's been leader for a while now, and we're yet to see the policies. They just think, that'll be fine. The difficulty that I have, and lots of people will turn around and say, well, reform are an alternative. I still am not convinced that they are, and you only need to see the infighting that we've seen and the relative lack of policies that they get out as well. the fact of the matter is, Donald Trump, even though he was this huge personality, this huge character, he had to hijack an established party in order to become president. And that's the fear that I have, is that this isn't going to change unless somebody like that latches onto one of the major two parties and changes it themselves from the inside. And the difficulty in this country, especially with the Conservatives, is there's just too much sort of institutional opposition to any kind of change. It's far too ingrained.
Let's just take that, an institutional opposition to any form of change. But if you know that if you don't change, you're going to die, because I don't see the Tory party being elected in the next 20 years at this rate. You're completely right about Badenoch. I've said that repeatedly. She might be very skilled. She might be a very switched-on lady, but I've heard nothing in depth. A couple of things. She'll pick a fight here and there. I don't see conviction politician. I don't see somebody that I can buy into. I always hark back to Thatcher, but she would have known that she had a shelf life because if you disagree with her, you've got. Are you pouring yourself a gin and tonic there? That's what I want to know. What are you actually doing?
Actually not. It is just water.
I know, a little gin and little snifter at 5:10. But I think the politicians are too scared. I think they are. Somebody said once that they're now so obsessed with focus groups and they don't say anything unless they know how it's going to be. I quite would like somebody to speak off the hoof, make a mistake and come out and say, I got that wrong, to be honest with you. There we go. It's Monday. I don't know.
Yeah,
I just want some normality.
I mean, that was Don Cummings who pointed out in that great big interview that he did with Dwarkesh Patel, where he was going through sort of line by line the fights that he had with various government ministers who, in his words, seemed to think that the measure of whether or not they'd done a good job was if they got on the Today programme and had a good interview. And that was sort of the attitude. And again, these are Tory MPs going on, broadcasters that are not necessarily friendly to them and just trying to get on with the presenters. And you kind of think,
why?
Is that really how government's done?
If I had a conviction as a politician, I would want to not be on the Today programme, and I'd want to probably argue with everybody that disagreed with me, because that would be the whole point, right? But I just, whatever I think personally, I think that all politicians across the spectrum are in danger of misunderstanding the depth and strength of feeling amongst the British people. I really believe that. I really do.
Yeah, and that, of course, is one of the key things about Donald Trump, was that he didn't play ball with the traditional media. He didn't try to make friends. He did the opposite. He pointed at them at his rallies, and he went on the offensive, and he said, CNN, what you're saying is fake. This is nonsense. I'm not going to talk to you. He actually went after the media and made an enemy of them. And as much as many journalists would turn around and go, this is disgraceful, it's an attack on free speech, hey, it worked as a technique. He didn't have to be their friends. And that, I'm afraid, is a part of the problem with, I think, British politicians, is a need to be loved, but not by the voters, by the media class, by their own colleagues, rather than the people that actually vote for them.
Isn't that interesting? Yeah. To crave what the column inches, the appearances on programmes, rather than respect the view of the people. I've always said, you'll laugh at me, you'll tell me, I've once said this to Juliet, and I think she explained it brilliantly to me, I can't remember, but I always said that I think, big issues, you should canvass your local party as to how they would wish you to vote. But once you get elected, so many of them don't do enough locally. I think it's really important. Let's tell you another story that drove me completely mad today. Many do. The cash-strapped hospitals. We were talking about the NHS last week. There's a big debate about, does it need more money? The usual argument. And then Harry from The Sun released this figure which nearly knocked me over, which was that we spend £80+ million a year on interpreters. So we go to people come to this country who can't speak English and aren't entitled to anything, and then we pay for an interpreter to give them a new house or whatever. Cash-strapped hospitals are written off, Benedict Spence, over 250 million quid owned by foreign patients because of failures to properly check they were entitled to free NHS treatment.
Yep.
Yeah.
Sounds about right.
Yeah. But that's appalling.
Yeah, it's literally free money that's being left on the table, and the government's gone, sounds like hard work trying to get it back, so we're not going to try. But, that amount of money actually pales into comparison when you look at the amount of money that was wrongly given out or claimed fraudulently in universal credit that the Treasury has just gone, we're probably not going to get that back, so why bother? I mean, that's in the billions. That's one of the things that sort of makes me laugh when, you have people talking about, well, how are we going to get out of our current financial situation? I don't know, let's tax the super rich or have a wealth tax. And you think, but there's literally billions just being left that the taxman could collect and chooses not to. Instead,
why?
They go
chooses not to.
Ordinary,
why?
hard-working people.
Why?
Why? Because they consider it to be too much hard work. Ultimately, it's, you're going after people who are, especially in the case of, the benefit claimants and the fraud that goes on there. Politically, it's very difficult for a Labour government because all of their own MPs will go, how can you possibly do this? These people are all struggling. And also, when it comes to the question of people who have come from overseas, well, then you have to go chase them potentially overseas. And maybe their governments don't necessarily agree that they should have to pay you. And so they don't cooperate.
We're a soft touch, aren't we, in this country? We're a soft touch.
And I'm sorry, I know you don't want to go on about tariffs all day, but what are the tariffs if not a country going, we are going to assert our strength on the international stage?
I'm in a minority in this building. I'd do exactly the same if I was Donald Trump, and I wish somebody would have the balls to stand up in the United Kingdom and say, for example, these measures that this government's brought in, which are destroying businesses, the NI increases, the workers' rights, all of that. How does that encourage business? I would have thought right now's the chance to go, let's really encourage business to make things and be competitive and sell them and be successful in the world. No, because we're too crushed by red tape and this ideology of it's more important that we allow people to feel good about themselves and not anxious. No, I want you to be competitive and make lots of things and sell them.
Well, it's why I said, what's going to change? It's not going to be that these politicians ever change their minds. It is going to have to be that they are replaced by politicians who have an entirely different worldview. The United States, I think, is very fortunate in a lot of ways that it has got to that point where a president has come in and he's gone, I don't like this and I am going to rip up this system because I can see that it's failing. So I'm going to get out ahead of the rest of the system failing by imposing these tariffs first. I'm going to be the one to sort of start reshoring the industry first. I'm going to make sure that I'm putting my country first. And I know that the international community then goes, but this is terrible. But that's sort of the point, is that he's
why does the international community say it's terrible? What is his priorities? The United Kingdom and Europe or the American people? It's the American people, isn't it?
Well, it is the American people, and this is an important thing to recognise because, of course, you pointed out that his polling is actually going up, and that's despite the fact that the markets are just sort of doing that. But of course, a lot of people who write for newspapers, they may have stocks or they know people who have stocks, or they're more exposed to that kind of wealth creation in general. But only about 8% of all Americans actually own any stocks or shares or in anything at all. The overwhelming majority look at this and they go, good, Wall Street's getting a kicking. Good, companies that have outsourced jobs to China and to Southeast Asia are getting a kicking. Finally, it might be painful for me in the short term, but you know what? Things were already pretty painful in the Rust Belt. Things can't get much worse for me, and maybe in 5, 6, 7 years' time, maybe for me, maybe for my children, there will be more jobs down the line. That is what a lot of those people are thinking. They're just going, look, it's already bad for me. So if it gets a bit bad for those guys on Wall Street, I don't care.
Could listen to you forever. 0344 499 1000. Don't go anywhere. Benedict Spence. Do you want transgender pool or Doctor Who?
Do I want transgender what?
Right. A professional women's pool tournament has been hit by protest after the final was contested by two transgender players, Harriet Haynes and Lucy Smith, faced off in the Ultimate Pool Women's Pro Series Event 2 at the Leisure Centre in Wigan on Sunday, having each beaten 4 female-born opponents. Critics labelled the event preposterous before accusing the sport of cheating on social media. Former Olympic swimmer, my mate Sharon Davis, called it bloody ridiculous and grossly wrong and everywhere. Protesters inside the venue shouted, "He's a bloke, and we stand with Lynn Pinches," and held up banners saying, "Save women's sport." Now, we had Fiona McAnena from Sex Matters on, who said, this is indicative of all sport. Everybody's suing absolutely everybody, but it's barking mad, isn't it?
It is, and honestly, I think you kind of got to the point where the sports that allow this sort of thing to happen, I think the best thing is actually for people like you and me to just ridicule them and go, it's not a real sport then, is it? Because they're not taking it seriously, so why should we? And I know that a lot of people might get very offended by that, but it's not. It's clearly not a serious sport. If you're just going, anybody who identifies a certain way or decides to take certain hormones or whatever can, rock on up and play, why should I take that particularly seriously? As a spectator sport, why should I recognise the winner of that contest? Because it just sounds like they don't take it seriously, so why should I?
Or as Kenny in Edinburgh says, Benedict, Kenny in Edinburgh said, would the organisers of women's snooker tournaments just accept it if Ronnie O'Sullivan pitched up and is now Bonnie O'Sullivan and entered women's events?
I mean, do you know what, though, I think is really telling about all of these things? It's often these sort of fringe sports where people can get away with this sort of thing. The actual women's sports where there is money to be made and there's serious advertising and people actually tune in to watch. So say women's football, women's tennis, They don't get away with that sort of thing there. The advertisers, the competitors, they go, ha, no, you're not doing this. So if it's a sort of a niche Olympic thing, that's fine. If it's a niche sport, fine. But if it's something that actually has a huge audience, I just don't think you get away with it, because everybody involved in the sport goes, yeah, that's going to kill our product.
But for me, again, I said it an hour ago, it doesn't make sense. I've got a teenage daughter. I bring it back to the whole toilet issue. I've got nothing against transgender people. Nothing at all. Not interested. That's their business. But how you can possibly, as a father, I don't want a man with a penis in a dress going into a female toilet and changing next to my daughter. I don't want my daughter, Russell Quirk's daughter's the #1 paddle player, under 16s in the UK, right? If my daughter trained and become that, and a bloke comes into her sport because he's stronger or bigger, maybe pool isn't the right example, but tennis or something like that, I would be raging mad. How is that fair? And I made a point last hour, and I'd love this from you, and you probably know who I'm talking about. I've been surrounded by women shouting for ages about women's rights, and you and I will both absolutely defend women's rights. But I don't hear from these people when the transgender argument begins. I don't hear them sticking up for women. I don't hear any of that. Women's sport should be for women, shouldn't it?
Very often I think that there is an awkwardness because there is an understanding internally that this is wrong. But a lot of those people don't then speak up because it's their ideology that tells them that it should be wrong. And that's the problem. When reality clashes with ideology, lots of people are just caught like rabbits in the headlights going, what do? I best just stay quiet and still and hope that the mob doesn't spot that I haven't said anything. But the thing is, and I'd always say this about when it comes to transgender people in women's sports, if they were really women, they would understand the inherent fears of the women, of the parents of the young girls, and they'd go, their safety as women and girls probably trumps my right to walk all over them. If they really were women, they would understand that inherent fear. And the fact that they don't, I think, is very telling.
You'd be in my cabinet. What job would you have?
Secretary pouring the drinks. And
yes. Minister for alcohol. Anyway, it's time for a snifter and a peanut. 5:30. Thank you, Benedict Spence, former... no, he's not former. He's a Conservative commentator. 0344 499 1000. Ryan wants to go to a break, but I've got millions of text messages I will read afterwards, but also your calls if you want to be on. 0344 499 1000. You can send your text 87222. Start your message with the word talk. It's JK on Drive. You can talk about whatever you bloody well want. Have we got any biscuits? I'm starving. Talk.
In the stock market, certainly very little they can do in the short term. I think there's going to be some really tough choices come the spending review and the budget.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
5:28. Loads of you texting. Read that call with Sex Matters, Jez. If I identify as an airline pilot, even though I don't have any flying qualifications or experience, would these lunatics still let me fly them onto their holidays? I have no idea. Good afternoon. That was James. Debbie Dobson. I love that. You obviously don't want men going to female toilets because, as you pointed out, paedophiles and rapists don't always get custodial sentences, whereas if you ask them not to enter, you'll probably be banged up for being offensive. Couldn't agree more. Paul Jones. That caller that said sex doesn't matter in pool, if that is true, why don't the trans people want to play in the male category? Very interesting. But Mark says, sorry, Fiona, pool is a game based entirely on skill, not strength. To say men can break harder is ridiculous, factious, in my opinion. Otherwise, I completely agree. Men should not be allowed to compete in sports where they have an obvious physical advantage. Stuart, good afternoon. If you carry on with this madness in women's sports, you will end up with a women's football team entirely made up of men. Says Stupod. Kenny's very nice. We sent him money in Edinburgh. He says, the people in the UK must sort out the many problems they have before Jeremy Kyle bursts a blood vessel. The man is a genuine champion of free speech and we need to stop stressing him out, as he's a national treasure. He's probably my brother, and we need him. Please give yourself a wee high five from those in Edinburgh. I will. Vincent's in North Yorkshire. The effect of the tariffs worldwide, Jez, just goes to show how dependent the world has become on the US. Hear, hear, I say. If I was Keith Stalin, I would be speaking to European manufacturers, offering them the opportunity to make their products in the UK, as we can offer them a 10% tariff in the US rather than 20% if it's made here. Vincent Morris, who'd have thought there was an answer? Hello to Shirley in Durham. How come we have to produce insurance proof when we go to other countries and need care in hospital? Because we are from the United Kingdom and we wipe the backsides of everybody, Shirley, and don't look after our own. It's 5:30 to the phone lines in Hertfordshire. A very good afternoon. Couple of minutes only. Andrew, you're on Talk Jive. How you doing, kidder?
Really good. You do a cracking job. So the tariff things and Trump.
Yep.
What we can't control is the tariffs. That is going to play out like it plays out.
Yep.
What we can control is what we have produced historically well, and that is oil and gas. So no one is going to build a factory here. It's never going to happen. What we must give the market is consistency and predictability in costs and show we're investing in oil, because all manufacturing is energy heavy. So if we show them that there will be cheap energy here for a 10, 15, 20-year lifespan, then they can plan to work with us. And the other thing we should do is immediately drop all national insurance and VAT on modifications to golf courses and golf course building.
Mate, I am not a politician. I am not a financier. I don't understand much about it. I know that a man was elected by saying to the American people, I'm going to make your lives better. I don't have a problem with these tariffs. What I have a problem with, right, is a government that is hell-bent on increasing NI on small businesses and of workers' rights that are making it impossible. Millionaires are leaving this country because his only idea is to tax the rich. This is a golden opportunity to say, do you know what? Let's start drilling and fracking. I did it the other day on the show, right? I said, the most money we've got is under the North Sea. Let's utilise that. Let's do it on land. And people going, well, people will be offended. Give them free energy bills then. I don't care, but let's make the most of what we've got. Let's encourage businesses to set up and employ people and make things that we sell and we make money and everybody profits. But no, we've got a government that spends its entire time going, well, I think he might increase this. Yes, he's going to, because he doesn't care about anybody else but the American people. And genuinely, I don't seemingly have a problem with that. Do you?
No, and the bit that's interesting is you said that they want to tax the rich. Not taxing the rich. What they're doing is they're taxing jobs, which tax the poor.
Yeah.
That is why that is the most despicable. Right. It's the most despicable tax on goods. Cut income tax to 20% and bring NI down to 4%. And nothing on golf course maintenance or building golf courses.
Why are we doing golf courses? Are you in golf courses?
No, Trump is building a golf course in Scotland.
Yes.
Play to him.
That's a very interesting point. Are you a golfer?
Yeah, it's what elderly, middle-aged men do when they give up sport. Sadly, I am ashamed on national radio to admit I play golf.
What's your handicap?
21.
So I went to Newcastle this weekend because my best friend has close house, and my son delivered the greatest line ever on the 5th hole when I was 4 down, and he gave me a shot of the hole. He said, "Why don't you just give up and carry my bag?" And that's what I'm going to do from now on, but obviously not strong enough to carry his bag, so I'll get the buggy. Good to have you on, Andrew. You're a top man in Hertfordshire. Just gone 5:30. We're live across the United Kingdom. We're going to cross stateside now. Really interested in this. Jim Jatras is the former US diplomat and foreign policy advisor for the Republican leadership and has the greatest beard in broadcasting. Jim, good afternoon, sir. How are you?
I'm great, Jeremy. Always a pleasure to be with you.
Fantastic. Let's keep this as simple as possible, if only for the host on this side of the pond. I must be on my own in the United Kingdom right now. I would crave somebody to be elected in England who would say, I don't care about detractors legally, in the press or political circles. I am going to make your lives, I'm going to make you better off, I'm going to make you safer on the streets, I'm going to make sure that your public services are given to you rather than people coming into your country. Donald Trump, surely, Jim, can only be accused of doing exactly what he stood when he was elected to do, right? Defending the American people and business.
I certainly think that's its intention. I mean, look, there's been a lot of talk that the purpose here is to reindustrialize the United States, that our manufacturing base got hollowed out by decades of free trade policy where Americans bought a lot more stuff from around the world at very low prices because of the status of the dollar, but that had a very tremendously destructive impact on our manufacturing base. So the idea apparently is to bring that manufacturing back to the United States by maybe starting a trade war, what it amounts to. Whether that will work or not, I don't know. I mean, you can't just make factories just pop into existence overnight. That takes years, if not decades, of investment. But we'll see. I think that's his intention.
And interestingly, I was reading before I came on air, because obviously the world has recoiled in horror. The cosy status quo has been smashed to smithereens. There is talk of us in the United Kingdom suffering a £22 billion pound hit. The FTSE 100 is down. The US market's dropping rapidly by anybody's standards, worse in 5 years. He's on Air Force One from the toilet, opens the door and says it's medicine you're going to have to take. And yet I read an hour and a half ago that his approval rating in the last 7 days has gone up 4% amongst American people. So the reaction over there is what?
I think most people, or certainly the people who voted for him, are giving him the benefit of the doubt. But remember, Jeremy, this is still an extremely divided country. So the people who are against him are screaming bloody murder. And, again, in terms of consensus within the United States, nothing has changed.
What do you yourself, a former foreign policy advisor and a diplomat, what do you think of the approach? What do you think of the whole gambit that he's gone with? Do you think it benefits the United States? Is it typical Trump, the bully boy businessman? Because I just think he's basically done what he's done, so they all come crawling and get, he'll half the deal, he'll be okay. That's what you do. When we were selling, we were told that you offered gold, silver and bronze. They weren't going to buy gold. They wanted to buy bronze. I'm making it really simple. And they buy in the middle at silver, and everybody left the table happy. That's what you did.
Well, look, I've never drunk the free trade Kool-Aid. I've never been for this idea that somehow, comparative advantage, we're all interdependent, blah, 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 and borders don't matter anymore. You can say the same thing is true about migration and immigration as well. These things tend to go hand in hand. So I appreciate what he's trying to do. Whether he can pull it off, I don't know. Because I don't know if we've gotten to the point now where so much of American domestic economy is dependent on the global economy. For example, what is an American-made product anymore? An American-made car, when so many of the components are made abroad and would be subject to tariffs. So, this may not work. On the other hand, I'm going to give him credit for trying.
In terms of the world, would you agree with me that this is strong-arm tactics in the belief that people will come crawling to him and he will get a deal that puts America in a more favourable position than it is at this precise moment in time? That's how I see it here, but that doesn't allay people's fears here. But would you agree with that as an analogy?
I would say that that's the intention, and it may be working on some fronts. You do see some headlines that, Taiwan and Vietnam are throwing in the towel. They're coming crawling. They're going to negotiate down their tariffs and so forth. I think that's what he intends to do. I don't know how many countries that will work with. I think that will partly depend on what the economic relationship of that country is with the United States. For example, we see Mr. Starmer saying his response is what? Going to be lower the penalty on non-compliant vehicles from 15,000 pounds to 12,000 pounds. How that's going to help anything in the UK?
Yeah, but you're talking. I'm glad you called him Mister, because he doesn't deserve the knighthood. I've spent an hour and 40 minutes today saying one thing, Jim, and you're aware of the British government. They brought in a raft of measures that have basically screwed what I call small and medium-sized businesses. They've increased national insurance contribution. They made it far more difficult to employ people. Their profits, their food, that prices of everything, energy prices have gone through the roof while they're trying to, create wind fuel because they don't want to drill, as Trump does, despite the fact we've got all of that. And thus, small businesses, and they've brought this workers' rights bill in that means if you get a headache, you can have 6 months off pay because you might be anxious. All of that does nothing to create businesses. And I'm saying, and I've been saying for an hour and 40 minutes, that's what I'd be concentrating on if I was Keir Starmer, making us, in our little bubble, competitive and encouraged and prosperous, and then going to Trump and saying, listen, maybe you want to buy some of this, maybe we need to get our heads together. But the whole world seems to be sitting going, oh my God, Donald Trump's going to ruin us. I just expect the world to have bigger balls. Maybe I'm missing the point, pal.
Well, and indeed, if you're more better informed on this than I am. If you have those energy resources at your disposal, they can be exploited in a way that benefits the United Kingdom, then go for it. But I think we're entering an era perhaps where everything is going to be on a bilateral basis, UK to the United States, UK to Germany, Germany to the United States, and so on and so forth, rather than this kind of notion that, oh, well, everything's equal, we all play by the same rules, and we're all going to assume the same advantages and disadvantages. Maybe that world is coming to an end.
And just to finish, I don't know how many days it's been, nearly 100, is it? What's your view of Trump 2.0?
At this point, I think the jury's out on that as well. I mean, on this front, I'm giving him the benefit of the doubt. I have no idea what he's going to do in the very near future about whether going to attack Iran or not, which could throw the whole thing into a cocked hat if that goes south on the global economy and the American economy. And again, I don't think we're any closer to a solution to the Ukraine situation than we were when he took office. And unfortunately, he doesn't seem to have unloaded it early on the way he should have, and instead is digging himself deeper in. So I think it's a real mixed bag.
You're a star, mate. We kept you holding on for a while, but we always love having you on. Fantastic, and thank you as ever. Jim Jatras, former US diplomat, foreign policy advisor to the Republican Senate. Hello to Rob Shaw, who says, Jess. Apparently I've been renamed Jess. There you are, that's fine. Never mind. We have 400 years of coal underneath, so surely we can burn this clean with new technology. Yes, Rob. And we've got gas underneath the sea and in this country, but apparently all the environment, you'll upset the friends of the earth. Well, just give them a free bit. Oh, God, does my head in. Diana Whiting, I hope I've said that right, Diana. Tariffs may be good for the UK. Put them on our UK music, apples, products, beer, steel, the arts, cars, simply the best. Keir Starmer, support us and grow some apples. It's your job. I think she meant balls, but she's a polite lady and she said apples. I wonder why she said, do you think they were coxes? 20-6.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
I've tried talking about tariffs. It's all very exciting. But actually, there's some breaking... We got a breaking news tab. Breaking news on Talk. Tune in, my friends. This is true. Boris Johnson has been attacked by an ostrich. This is brilliant. I love this, Ryan. The former Prime Minister was enjoying a safari trip with his family. Whereabouts? Do we know where? Was it Whipsonade Zoo or Australia? When the bird leaned into his car and pecked his what? Oh, not his... It was his hand. I thought it was his something. I thought it was his... Oh, can you imagine? In footage shared online, he quickly jerked away from the ostrich. Oh, now we're at it. And shouted, "Oh, cripes! In hell," before driving off. So there you go. So listen, if you're having a bad afternoon and you don't give a damn about tariffs and you're thinking, I'm going to set a challenge in the next hour and a quarter, OK? And there might well be a prize. I'm not going to make any promises, but there might well be a prize. Ryan, I'm ahead of you. WhatsApp 0344 499 1000. Have you ever been bitten or attacked by an animal? That's because I'm past tariffs now. Boris Johnson, ladies and gentlemen, has been attacked by an ostrich. The former PM was enjoying a safari trip with his family when the bird leaned into his car and pecked his hand. In footage shared online, he quickly jerked... jerked away from the ostrich and shouted, "Oh, cripes, in hell," before driving off. So, have you... Ryan, do you like that? We've got to do something. Have you been bitten or attacked by anything? Not an ex-wife or an ex-husband, an animal. You know, like, have you been in a safari park? A little spider bite, something. Have you ever sat on the toilet and a frog's bitten you on the bum? I don't know. I'm trying. 0344 499 1000. Oh, let's talk about tariffs again. Dave's in London. Hello, Dave. God, tariffs. How are you?
Hello, Jeremy. How are you?
Have you ever been bitten by an animal in a safari park as Boris Johnson's been nipped by an ostrich?
Yeah, I went on a safari once and we went out camping by some pond and everyone buggered up and left us in a tent by ourselves, so...
Do you not think that's slightly more interesting, though, than talking about tariffs? But no, you go with tariffs, Dave, because you know what you're talking about. I'll keep quiet.
Well, I wish I did, but I think all this talk about us taking the opportunity, I'm afraid we can't because of October. The fact that they ratcheted up all of the taxes and everything else, even if I asked you personally to come on in, you know, create a business, take advantage of these tariffs, you'd take one look over your shoulder and say, oh, hang on a minute, I've got all this NI stuff, I've got Rayner's working conditions, so we're kind of stuck, mate. We can't. No. Do
you know you are a man after my own heart. I'm so with you, and I've been saying it all day because instead of sitting, and I know it's probably quite simplistic, Dave, but instead of sitting around going, "Oh my God, he's going to put tariffs on everything. We're going to be skinned." I understand, and I genuinely mean this about the shares and the FTSE index. I don't even know what that means, but anyway, I understand that, and people will worry about their pensions. That is a genuine and understandable concern. But I would have thought that, having broken free from the European Union that's at a 20% tariff levied, knowing that we've just got 10%, knowing that actually if you could play the game, Starmer, you could do a deal with the orange man, baby, I would have thought that it would be a chance to go, right, I'm not going to crucify small businesses with NI increases. I'm not going to empower people to have 6 months off because they cut a toenail or so. I'm not being disrespectful, but so much of it's so woolly. And actually what I'm going to do is I'm going to galvanise British manufacturing, the economy, business, because if that works, that creates the growth, the jobs and the products that we can go to Trump or go to the world. Sod Trump, go to the world and go, hey, look at us, we've got something for you. But that mindset doesn't seem to be there.
No, and even if he's gone along to the car factory today to stand there and make his usual statement, I want to be absolutely clear. However he does it, and what does he come up with? He's going to delay some hybrid vehicles till 2035. Meantime, maintaining the fact you can't sell any cars after 2030. The executives of JLR must have just stood there looking at him, thinking, "You clueless buffoon! You've put a plaster on a leg, on an amputated leg wound."
I'd take Trump on, see. I don't have a problem with Trump. I think Trump is doing exactly what he said he was going to do for the American people. I'd say to the British people, right, we need to get canny here. We need to get canny, man. And the only way we're going to do that is I'm going to make it easier for you to have a business. I'm going to make it easier for you to make money and be successful. I'm going to make it easier for you to make products. I'm going to help you. I'm going to cut red tape and ridiculous laws. I want you to make as much as you can of good stuff, and I'm going to go and sell it right under his nose so that he comes crawling to me. But there doesn't seem to be that mindset. It's like, oh, we don't know what to do at the moment. I don't know. Maybe it's me. Thank you, Dave. What?
Well, he's a lawyer, mate, so this is not his domain. He doesn't get this. He's kind of thinking, how do I legally get us out of this?
I'll tell you what he is. He's a globalist who I don't think gives a toss about the United Kingdom. Dave, you're a legend. Keep listening. We'll go to London also very quickly. Francis, you're on Talk Drive. Couple of minutes. What you got?
I was bitten. I used to have a friend who lived opposite me in Kent that brought a leopard and a tiger.
Sorry. Rewind. You lived opposite a friend in Kent and what?
She brought a leopard and a tiger over from Vegas, thinking that she could take them into a mall to talk about conservation, and they went, "You're joking." But she had a monkey and a lemur and various other exotics, and this monkey was good friends. I used to clean it out and play with it, and one day I was in its cage and I had a split second of doubt, and the monkey attacked me. It had my finger in its mouth. So I punched it and I got my finger out. But I tell you what, I lost all monkey status. And the monkey, after that point, turned its back on me whenever I walked past the cage.
Has it traumatised you for life, losing your monkey status?
Well, no, it hasn't.
You've made me smile, Francis. You're the first person who hasn't mentioned tariffs. Francis, the monkey biter, or was bitten by a monkey, from London. You see, we've talked about tariffs, and I just thought, Bojo, this breaking news, ladies and gentlemen, forget the rest of the show. Boris Johnson been attacked by an ostrich. The former PM was enjoying a safari trip with his family when the bird leaned into his car and went, oi, oi, and pecked his hand. In footage shared online, he quickly jerked from the ostrich. Don't dirty minds away from the ostrich, and shouted, "Oh, cripes, get hell," before driving off. And so I just set it out there. Have you been attacked by an animal? Jeremy, I've been attacked by a goat in the Scilly Isles and a turkey in Norfolk, says Ken in Essex. When I was about 7, says Trevor Jenkins, on holiday in Spain in the 70s, a monkey pulled my long hair. It was long because it was the 70s. I was in floods of tears. And as a family car drove out the car park, an elephant ripped off the car mirror. We got the message. Spanish animals aren't to be trusted. Jeremy, Brittany here from the United States. I was spurred by a rooster in my right foot a few years ago. Spurred? How do you get spurred by a rooster? I know a person who's been... Jodie, have you ever been spurred by a rooster? Talk Drive.
this only happened to me today on the way to the studio in this very building. I've told you this already. I'm in the lift.
Yeah.
Tell me what you think of this, Rebecca. This is how mad the world is. 2 men, am I allowed to say that? And a woman.
Yeah.
Doors open, floor 2. I said, ladies first. Looked at me like I'd literally got into her house on Christmas Day and weed on the kids. I don't even know what I'm supposed to do anymore. Oh, if we're starting this at 3, the world's gone nuts.
Yeah.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
6 minutes to 6, push the button, Ames.
Sport Summary on Talk.
We welcome back a man who, when I created, gave him his first job and he's done very well for himself. Ian Danter, a very good evening. How are you?
That's the 17th time you've taken.
Well, I'll tell you what you got wrong last week, man in purple. We did a segment, didn't we? And I made some predictions, and you laughed in my face, you idiot. And then you didn't turn up the next day because those 6 matches, even Ryan was texting me going, "Jeez, you're an absolute bloody legend." I called the Ipswich win, I called the Southampton draw, I called the Villa win, the Newcastle win. The only thing I didn't say, I said it would be a draw between Liverpool and Everton, and the goal that won the match for Liverpool was 2 feet offside. So essentially, Dance, with the greatest respect, I am probably one of the greatest sports predictors ever.
Do you want me to go now?
But I would like you to be honest. It's true, isn't it?
Well done. Jolly well done, sir. Jolly well done indeed.
Listen, me old son, lovely to have you back. That has to be the crappiest Manchester derby I've ever seen. I completely agree with Roy Keane and Gary Neville. Just a joke, man. They were embracing each other at the end like it was a good match.
Yeah, very poor game, very little to rate. It's funny that when that early yellow card went the way of, was it Diaz who got an early yellow card, and Manchester United had a free kick inside a couple of minutes. I mean, goals change games, undoubtedly, and if say, Manchester United had scored early in that game, then we could have seen a completely different spectacle. But yes, there was a desperation not to lose from a long way out in that game from both sets of players. Very disappointing for those that paid good money to go and attend. And yeah, here we are 24 hours later, still picking the bones out of it and trying to see whether you widen it out as to the quality of Premier League football as a whole. I think it's a bit too easy an argument to make to damn the Premier League.
Oh, damn the Premier League, but I think that fear thing. I mean, look.
Well, some have, Jez. Some have. You know.
No, I get that. Liverpool lost. That happens. A few defensive errors, but Chelsea, Brentford was the same thing. Maybe you get to a point where, and I used to say about English rugby, we were too scared in the past when we were kids to run with the ball in case you lost. It was all about the forwards, and suddenly they played an expansive game and they won the World Cup. I mean, you have to. But the thing is, Dance, right? There's so much money involved, isn't there? So much money involved nowadays.
And what's happened now is because there is so much money involved and goes so much further down the pyramid in the Premier League, you've got teams like Fulham, like Brighton, like Bournemouth, who are mixing it so much better with the established elite than they've ever been able to do. And it's got people worried. Yeah. And maybe there is a little bit of what our dear colleague Ray Houghton used to call fear football. That did permeate the Premier League definitely about 10, 15 years ago. And maybe it's on its way back. I know Gary Neville's looked at the blueprint that Pep Guardiola has laid down and that others have tried to copy it, but the facsimile is not as good as the real thing. And that has also contributed to this micromanagement of players. But these things shall pass, Jez. They often do.
A bit like yours and my career. Tonight, prediction, Leicester-Newcastle. I flew back from Newcastle last night. You wouldn't fly back from Leicester once you'd escape. Flew back from Toon last night. 4-0. Nailed on. 4-0.
Yeah, well, look, Leicester. I saw Leicester at Manchester City last week. That's where I talked to you from last week when I was at the Etihad ahead of that game, and it was pretty meek. The only Leicester player that looked like he was genuinely aggrieved at what was going on was Jamie Vardy.
Yeah.
He got hooked at half-time by Ruud van Nistelrooy. Newcastle have won 3 in a row, including that Carabao Cup win against
2 games
Liverpool.
in hand now to get 4th place. 2 games in hand.
They do look really handily placed to leapfrog at least Manchester City. I mean, they'd have to win by a cricket score to go above Chelsea into 4th tonight. But I mean, well,
but they've got 2 games in hand. Is TalkSport doing Leicester Newcastle? Are you doing that match?
No, I'm not doing that match, but it is a TalkSport exclusive tonight. They're on there from 7 o'clock with Adrian Durham and the team.
Well, they've missed a trick not having you on. I mean, Adrian, come on, that's ridiculous. Should have Ian Danton.
They're saving me for tomorrow night doing Arsenal Real Madrid as we go
full
around.
of it. I spoke to Jackson this week. He sent his regards. He said he can't believe he's still working. Southampton manager Ivan Juric gone after relegation. We only got a minute and a half. He had 14 matches and lost 12, and he's got the most ridiculous haircut. Bye-bye.
Well, that's the long and the short of it then.
Including the hair. And the big news today, Harry Brook, one of our best young cricketers, I called this as well, I said it to Ryan some time ago, named the England white ball captain, succeeding Joss Buttler.
Fantastic news for him, and he has taken charge of England's white ball team in the past when Joss Butler's been unavailable, so it's not a completely uncommon role for him, as you'll know, Jez. And as with any captain that takes over, because he plays all 3 forms of the game, Jez, there's just that natural concern in the back of my mind, and maybe yours too, that he doesn't overload himself with too much cricket, and that he's able to, concentrate fully on the job in hand, as happens with anybody that becomes England cricket captain.
We wish him luck, and we wish you luck. You should be on TalkSport tonight, but he will be on tomorrow. News at 6 exact. Thanks, Dance.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back, third and final hour of Drive for Monday. We should salute Britain's best city, my second home, the amazing Newcastle upon Tyne. Hello to Tez, apparently big fan. Tez, lovely to have you on board, me old son. Tell your friends. And also a very important man in Newcastle, Mr. Rob Armstrong. Spent every day with him, it seems, this week. Battered him on the golf course on Friday, and he absolutely battered me with my son on Saturday. Top man. He'll be at the game. No, is it home or away? He won't be at the game tonight. But he's a proper Toon Army fan. And as with the rest of them, they all believe that Newcastle will finish fourth. And I'm with you. I hope they do. They deserve to. Love you, big man. Thank you for playing. 3 minutes past 6, live across the UK. 0344 499 1000. So I found myself, do 3 hours, they said. And let's talk about tariffs, they said. Well, I don't know about the rest of you, but frankly, not the most exciting thing in the world, OK? So I just happened to mention some breaking news, and I bring in my next guest because I want her reaction. Ladies and gentlemen, Talk's international editor. I love her. She loves me. Isabelle Oakshot, good afternoon.
Do you know what? I'm so glad that you said that you're not excited by tariffs, because I'm really sorry to admit that I'm not either. And that I know it's really important and it's having a cataclysmic effect on global markets. And it, of course, it's serious and it's really meaningful for many great British businesses. But it's not fun, is it?
Shall I tell you what is fun? Shall I tell you what is cataclysmic for businesses? Shall I tell you what has woken the nation up in the last half an hour because of the sharp, incisive mind that Ryan doesn't have? Ladies and gentlemen, there's some breaking news. Boris Johnson has been attacked by an ostrich. The former Prime Minister was enjoying a safari trip with his family when the bird leaned into his car and pecked his hand. In footage shared online that I'm about to share with Isabelle, he quickly jerked away from the ostrich and shouted, "Oh, cripes, Kinnell," and before driving off. Now, I just happened to say to people, right, have you been bitten by an animal? The response has been phenomenal. Before we play that, if you're watching YouTube or online, and Isabelle's going to see this is Bojo being bitten by an ostrich. Go.
Oh, Christ!
Oh, that's my favourite. That's made me laugh for the first time today. So, Isabelle, before we get down to it, loads of people. I hope the ostrich is OK, says Clay in Folkestone. Dave Turner says, can I have a pint of whatever you're on today, Carl? Laughing my apples off at your show. Cheered me right up. Thank you. Stuart in Perthshire says, when I was about 44, I stuck my fingers through the fence at Edinburgh Zoo and a penguin pecked my hand. I remember thinking they were so nice on the 1970s chocolate biscuit adverts. Couldn't believe it. I'm still traumatised today and can't stand penguins. They're my least favourite animal. Paul's in Belfast. He said, I've snorkeled and dived all over the world for 40 years with sharks and all manner of scary stuff. The only thing that has attacked me several times is a Titan triggerfish in the Maldives. Google it. It is damn scary, says Paul there. Alex says, imagine if you let loose a load of ostriches into the Houses of Parliament. That, my friends, would waken everybody up. Now, your partner is in the... How would Richard Tice respond to an ostrich pegging his head? Would he go, hell, or would he be all right with it? What would he do?
This is an image I'm really struggling to get my head around. I mean, I was wondering, do you remember a few years ago, there was that whole thing that went viral on social media about whether these, I think they were pandas or something else like that in a Chinese zoo, were actually pandas, or were they people in panda costumes? Yeah. So what I wondered when I watched that ostrich biting Boris is whether that is actually a bird or is it actually somebody in a ostrich costume.
An angry anti-Brexit demonstrator. If you're watching again, it's brilliant. I think this is an anti-Brexit person dressed up. Look at this, straight for his hand. Oh, God, he's got...
There you go.
Absolutely brilliant. I think it's hysterical. Isabelle, we've had a bit of fun. Apparently, we're going to get to it. Now, you won't have been listening because you've been working really hard, but me on tariffs goes like this. Donald Trump, like him or loathe him, got elected by the American people by a majority of votes to in his mind, and from what he said, protect the American people, make them better off, their streets safer, deal with immigration, deal with public services, financially secure their future. I see the whole world led by an inept leader here. Oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. Now, I understand, I would not be disrespectful, the FTSE and the NASDAQ and US markets have fallen, but I think, could be wrong, that this is a really, really good opportunity for the United Kingdom to go, right, so Europe's got 20% tariffs, we've only got 10. He's playing the businessman's deal. Why don't we as a government do a complete U-turn and say to businesses, you know what, we're not going to increase NI, we're not going to have mad workers' rights reforms. We are going to encourage you to build a business and employ people and make things and be successful so we can say to the world and or Donald Trump / this is us and we're great, but we don't. We sit and we moan and we wait and we bitch. Now, is that mad what I'm thinking? You know more than me.
No, I mean, of course it's not mad. And it was the original Brexit vision. You know, this was what those of us that campaigned for Brexit and still believe that the idea of Brexit is absolutely the right one, always wanted to see. It only works. There's only any point in Brexit if we truly differentiate ourselves from the organisation that we left. What's the point of being like a more rubbish version of the EU? No point in that whatsoever. And yet that's exactly the route that this Labour government has taken us down. And in fairness to Labour, pretty much the route that the last Tory administration also took us down, while they busily apologised for Brexit and kind of said they would do their best to make it work and actually did nothing of the sort, using the pandemic as an excuse. We've now had a few examples of how Brexit could really work in our favour, of this different tariffs for the UK, slightly less bad tariffs for the UK, is just one illustration. And it is a real quandary for Starmer and the gang to work out how best to deal with this. You know, do they play nicey-nicey and, you know, wait and hope that Trump sort of changes his mind? Or do they almost fight fire with fire and say, OK, this is a new world we live in, and actually I'm afraid we're going to have to tear up everything, all our plans, and we're going to adopt a totally new approach to our economy? Actually, what Starmer has done so far is just the usual weak kind of mishmash of both of those things. So on the one hand, he's saying, yeah, the world as we know it has changed. And on the other hand, he's saying, let's sit tight and kind of, you know, take a few damage mitigation measures and hope that...
But why would he not turn it on its head, like I said, instead of waiting for Trump to play ball or come to the party? Because people will laugh at me. I was a salesman. I know exactly what Donald Trump's doing, right? He's done what he's done so that they'll get on their knees and go to the White House and say, you said 40, we'll accept 20. He's go, bingo, of course I wanted 20. That's the way it goes. The United Kingdom, I thought, decided to leave the European Union for the very reasons that you and I have always believed in, which is that we are an island and that we can make stuff and we should decide who we sell it to and what we charge for that, and we should decide all of these things. So is this not a chance for us to say right now, let's provide the conditions and provide the environment by which British business can flourish? British business can again be at a point where the rest of the world will be interested in our products, but we haven't got any of that. We've got this poodle, I don't understand why they don't turn this on their heads. And it seems the world is stuck. I know, I mean, I've read today there's going to be a £22 billion hit to the UK economy. Potentially. I've spoken to people I know over the weekend who are worried about their investments and all of that. But I also believe that there's something to be said for having a leader who comes and does what he says he's going to do. And that's what he's been promising for years, Isabelle.
Well, he's promised to put the American people first, and that's what he's doing. Now, whether it'll work remains to be seen, but he's giving it a go.
Yep.
And by the way, what is it about this £22 billion figure? It seems to crop up all the time. I mean, that was Rachel Reeves's fictional black hole, wasn't it? You know, the black hole in the economy of 22 billion. What, now there's another one? It's all very convenient for this government whose approach to the economy is absolutely tanking. Rachel Reeves now has another brilliant excuse for continuing to fail. And that's what I fear this is going to be. I heard this narrative from the left well before these tariffs were imposed, that because of Donald Trump, now there was going to be an awful lot less money in the public coffers. We've got to stop being buffeted by events. We've got to stop acting as if all we can do is take damage limitation measures.
And stop reacting and be proactive. That would be my mantra.
Actually be masters of our own destiny.
Absolutely.
That was the whole point of Brexit.
Right, enough of tariffs. I'm going to do a voice now. I need to get back to the quality of what drive time is. Eddie, what you want to say?
I got attacked by my cat once. I came out the shower stark naked. She was laying on the bed. As I was drying myself, she leaped for, you know what? As I swayed out the way, she managed to just scratch the tip of it. I told her, Simona, what you doing? And then she just run downstairs. But yeah, that ostrich who attacked Boris, you know, looking at Boris's hairstyle, the ostrich probably thought that Boris was one of them.
Sorry, he came out of the shower and his cat scratched his... Honestly, the quality of this show, look at Isabelle's face. Honestly, she can't believe it. She's a renowned journalist, talks international editor, and she's had a voice note about a man who had his willy scratched by a cat. Let's get back to it, Isabelle. I just had to drop that in. Somebody's got to move these people. Do you know what I'm saying? 0344 499 1000. Let's get back to common ground. I'd love to know your thoughts on Suella Braverman, the former Home Secretary this weekend, has called for the release of this mother, you'll know it, Lucy Connolly, 42, who was jailed last year for 31 months for, we should all agree, excessive comments in the wake of the Southport murders. I didn't and won't condone anything that she said, but the irony of what happened is this woman is languishing in jail for hurty words when it could easily be argued that community service and education would have helped that situation more. This is on the same day, Isabelle Oakshot, we discover that a jihadi bride who travelled to Syria to join ISIS is being allowed to return after immigration judges said that she needs medical care and has a son back here. Lucy Connolly's got 2 kids, but she's in jail. I'd love your reaction to this.
My reaction is that these cases are absolutely sickening. You know, these were political prosecutions, pure and simple. They were the work of a government in a panic, a prime minister with his back against the wall, who decided to use the judicial system to regain control of the streets in a totally disproportionate way. You know, the same thing happened during COVID. We saw a panicking government using the courts to try to get people to do exactly what they wanted them to do. It's a way of control. And
two-tier though, right? Two-tier justice, obviously.
In a system where monsters, real monsters, routinely walk free, that is drug traffickers, child abusers, knife wielders, machete mobs, you know, they routinely escape with community sentences. To jail a mother who was previously totally law-abiding for a foolish, very ugly tweet, which she hastily deleted, is absolutely unjustifiable. And I really find it sickening. You know, when one of the first acts of this government, one of the first of many totally stupid things they did, was release a bunch of hardened criminals from jail because our jails are overcrowded. How then can it make any sense to use up a single jail cell for a woman like this? The only harm she ever did was theoretical. She has never harmed anybody in any demonstrable way.
And I make the point for Isabelle and I, because I made it earlier. We're not condoning in any way what she said. What she said was fundamentally wrong. But the principle and the two-tierness of this entire decision-making process is powerful. Here's another one for you today, Isabelle. Again, you know, there's sort of, you know, everybody's talking tariffs and yet you find these stories. Cash-strapped hospitals. We've talked about the NHS, you and I, repeatedly. You know, 200 billion, it's not enough. Yes, it is. You need to get rid of middle managers and cut out the extortionate wastage. Cash-strapped hospitals have written off over £250 million owned by foreign patients because of failure to properly check they were entitled to free NHS treatment. And the government is saying it's only 256.4 million, to be perfectly honest. We've got better things to do. What does that say?
What that says is, you know, I don't think that's a small amount, even in government terms. I mean, you can do an awful lot with that.
That's a sixth of what they saved by freezing 4,000 pensioners to death this winter.
Yeah, I mean, it's completely appalling. And it comes down to the way that the hospitals behave when people are admitted. Now, obviously, if somebody's carried in on a stretcher, they're in the middle of a cardiac arrest, it's quite right that any humane society and a society with the money that we have tries to save their life. But when people are coming in for so-called elective treatment, and this happens all the time, you know, they come in, they complain that they've got a bad heart, they're not instantly about to die, then the first thing we should be asking for, and this is what other countries do, by the way, is their debit card or their credit card. They should have to pay up front. It's no good treating people and then hoping that perhaps sometime down the line, long after they've disappeared back to Africa or Pakistan or parts of the Middle East, that they may actually cough up the cash. You've got to ask for it up front. And I'm not actually aware of any other country that does what we do and treats first in non-emergency cases and then hopes to recover the money later.
I mean, I so agree. We had Harry Cole on last week. I was mentioning this to Benedict earlier, and it was... we spent... Harry was telling me they did an investigation. We spent 83 million out of the 200 billion last year. 83 million employing interpreters for people going to our hospitals who couldn't speak English. Now, that's not a racist comment in any which way, but there is not a country in the world that you or I could go to where we didn't speak the language, where they would provide an interpreter and give us an operation and a hospital stay, unless, as you quite rightly said, Isabelle, you got your debit card out. And it's a prime example of, I think, I don't know if you agree with this, that the way the United Kingdom was the sort of leader, the humane, moral leader of the world, but we're skint. We can't even afford the interest on our debts, and our own people are suffering. And that's where, for me, that past ideology has got to get out the window as soon as possible.
It's a completely flawed way to run a country. We're not a charity.
Yeah.
We're a country. We're not Médecins Sans Frontières or any other international humanitarian charity. We are a country. And the government's first duty is to the people of this country. And by that, I don't mean anyone who rocks up in an inflatable boat across the channel. I don't mean anyone who rocks up, even if they've got a legitimate visa, but they've only just appeared to work in our country or in other way settle here. I mean people who have paid their way into the system. And when you lose sight of that, then you are going to bust your budgets. And that is exactly what's happened across government. And what really worries me is that this Labour administration shows no sign whatsoever of recognising this. They still seem to think that we are some kind of global philanthropic scheme.
You're so right. And you know, in the past, if you'd said stuff like that, not you, I mean one, oh, that's outrageous. But how can it be outrageous when your own people, public services, how can it be, and we say every day about migrants seeing a doctor when people can't, how can it be that a woman is allowed back because she needs medical care? How can it be that we've wasted 250 million on medical care for people who haven't paid their way? What I want to say to all the do-gooders is, you're going to miss out. Your family are going to miss out. Your grandparents are going to miss out. Your kids will probably miss out. That doesn't make sense, does it?
It really doesn't, but they seem to think that other people's money is limitless. That's a problem with socialists. You know, they just think that it's not real money. It's someone else's resources. And, you know, it's the same attitude with amongst those who think that the NHS is free. I mean, of course it's not free. It's paid for by everyone who pays taxes. But nonetheless, people still seem to think that they and we should all be grateful for the NHS because when you turn up, you're not actually charged, and especially not if you're a foreigner.
Now, I don't want to traumatise you anymore because I think that voice note traumatised you where the bloke got bitten by the cow.
I was just really worried you were going to ask me to comment on it. I was thinking, what do I say?
No, you don't need to worry, but I'm never asking you to comment on things like that. I'm far too respectful. Do you want to finish with 1 minute on the all-transgender women's pool final or Doctor Who having a trigger warning? Your choice.
Or can we go for the transgender thing?
So this is a professional women's pool tour and has been hit by protest after the final was contested by two transgender players. Harriet Haynes and Lucy Smith faced off on Sunday in Wigan. Having beaten 4 female-born opponents each, critics labelled the event preposterous, accused the sport of cheating. Former Olympic champion, our friend Sharon Davis, called it bloody preposterous, grossly wrong. Protesters inside the venue, as the transgender person once shouted, "He's a man," and "We stand with Lynn Pinches," and held up banners saying "Save women's sport." I'd love your take on this. I'm really strong on this. I really am strong on it. What are your thoughts?
Well, there was another case, wasn't there, in the last few days of, I think it was a fencing competition in the US, where the genuine female in the case took the knee in a kind of very dignified protest against being asked to compete against basically a man. I mean, this is grotesque, this. And, you know, I've said before on this show, I have a daughter who is very athletic. The idea that my teenage daughter should be pitted against boys of the same age who have entirely different physiques makes me feel quite sick. It is so discouraging for young athletes or young would-be athletes, and it is manifestly unfair, and it just has to stop. I'm sorry, you know, you either compete in the category of the gender you were born in, or we create some kind of trans games in which all these people can compete if they so wish. Either of those things would be a reasonable solution, but to ask biological women to compete against biological males is just wrong.
And can I ask you just one final question? I know we're going to, but this is really important to me. You've got a teenage daughter, I've got a teenage daughter. I spread it still further, and from the sporting point of view, I agree. We've talked about same-sex toilets. Can you explain to me, because you're an opinionated, successful woman, right? Why do all the women that quite rightly jump up and down and talk about women's rights and how women should be treated the same, and so they should, why do I not hear anything from those women when this transgender argument? Why do I not hear from the female activists that actually I and you with teenage daughters don't want them to be in a toilet with a man in a skirt who's got a penis? Why do I hear nothing about them defending women in those instances? I don't get it at all. Never have.
Well, let me give you one really simple explanation, because it is an absolutely toxic issue to wade in on. And I'll tell you this, that for years, I tried to avoid speaking out on this issue. A, because I thought, unfortunately, I was wrong about this. I thought it was very marginal and it would all go away. And B, because the trans activist lobby is really militant and can be incredibly nasty. And I understand why anyone who doesn't have to shudders at getting involved in this debate, because the pile-on that you're likely to get on social media for saying things that are just simple matters of fact is absolutely terrifying.
I have nothing against transgender people, but I will argue until I'm blue in the face that, and you said it just brilliantly, there should be a category. I think we're talking about women's sports, and I think it's a really powerful thing. I hope you're not too traumatised about the man, the voice note. We appreciate your time as ever. I really look forward to having you on. Isabelle, thank you so much indeed. Isabelle Oakshot, Talks International Editor. 6:25 0344 499 what is it? 0344 499 1000. I need voice notes to Ryan on WhatsApp on that number, calls to Jodie, and text to 87222. Start your message with the word talk. 6:25 next. Doctor Who has a trigger warning. The world's gone blimmin' nuts, man.
ended up in court, and a federal judge has said the United States has got to return him after he was mistakenly deported, deport him by Monday. So it's kind of interesting to see how that will play out, because, of course, Trump has gone really hard on these. I'm going to be really tough on immigration. That was a really big part of his electioneering was this immigration. I mean, tough on it, and he made like quite a big show, and it was televised. These people being deported, all in chains and put in jail.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Back almost 6:30. It's Monday night. We're live across the UK. JK till 7. Kev here at 7 o'clock. Just keep the calls coming. He'll be winding you up, I've no doubt. 0344 499 1000. Thank you for your calls today. Text 87222. The other big news story of the day, that nothing is sacred in the United Kingdom, ladies and gentlemen. The latest version, the latest show to be fixed with trigger warnings, which basically is just certain people saying, oh, you better not watch this, it's really wrong. Ladies and gentlemen, Doctor Who has now got trigger warnings. Doctor Who is a show. Apparently they are doing the trigger warnings about discriminatory aliens. Mark Littlewood is the director of popular conservatism and freely admits he is a massive Doctor Who fan. Mark, good afternoon, evening, whatever it is. How are you?
Hi, Jeremy. Great to be with you. Yes, indeed I am. And, Jeremy, I've got the particular DVD. It arrived just a few days ago. This is the one that's causing so much concern, that needs trigger warnings about. You might notice it's only a PG certificate, though. So
let me explain this, right? So the caution comes on this new 4-part animation. Viewers are alerted to PG-rated The Savages, featuring alien beings and fantasy violence. The British Board of Film Classification also says episodes include verbal references to discrimination, oh shocking, and the discriminatory social structure of an alien society. I'm going to swear, get ready with the thing. It's a bloody programme. What the alien, what the discriminatory social structure of an alien society. The next will tell you that Daleks have got feelings. What the hell's going on? I can't take much more.
Jeremy, I've got bad news.
What?
It's even worse than you think.
Why?
This is a William Hartnell story. He was the first Doctor Who.
Yes.
This story comes from 1966. They've lost the original footage, but they've got the audio, so they've animated it around the audio. The story is about the Doctor landing on an alien planet where there's a high-tech society, and this high-tech society is exploiting the low-tech society next door. The Doctor's on the side of the slaves. He liberates them. He leaves behind his companion to make sure that these two parts of society are united. If anything, it's a woke left-wing story. It's not pro-slavery. It's not pro-exploitation. It's exactly the opposite. And it's a kid's show. It's a family show from 1966. Jeremy, the Doctor Who's been around for 62 years now, and he's come across some pretty weird and...
Yeah, so I have to stop you there. You can't say he, because that...
Oh, one of them. You're right. One iteration is a she. So the he's and the she's that have been the Doctor...
There, I'll say that. That'll get me
the
saying.
he-she's have come across a lot of weird and insane and bizarre adversaries, but none as weird and insane and bizarre.
And interestingly,
broadcasting film characters.
And interestingly, is that Doctor Who? I mean, it's like Star Trek, isn't it? People are really into it. Doctor Who's viewing figures have plummeted. Woke storylines featuring there was a transgender character, no problem with that, but it's just that everything seems to have been hijacked for some ideological morality which I never understand. At what point do you think, and you're a Doctor Who fan, you're about popular conservatism, at what point do you think we're going to, as a society, go, do you know what, can I just decide what I want to watch? Do you think I could just, even if you find it offensive, it's like Ricky Gervais is right, they're only jokes. We're all going to die soon, and there's no sequel. If you don't, I mean, I said it for years after what happened to me, if you don't want to watch something, don't watch it, turn it off, for God's sake, but don't, I think, tell the rest of the world what they can and can't do.
You're completely right. I agree with that. And I guess the good news here, sad for Doctor Who fans like me, but the woker that mainstream culture goes, people are turning it off. Yeah. Doctor Who's ratings, since it became more interested in spreading the message rather than telling good science fiction, has seen its viewers, its ratings absolutely fall off the edge of a cliff.
So why wouldn't, right, Mark, why, and I say this about politicians, and I'll say it about television makers. Piers and I have this discussion many times. Why wouldn't, OK, politicians, but in this case television stations, networks, production companies go, hold on a minute, I might be ticking an ideological box, but people want something. Like, we've sat here today, right, and I totally understand that tariffs are at the forefront of everybody's mind. The fact that it bores the bits off me, I'll do it. But then at 5:30, Ryan says, this is brilliant, Boris Johnson's been bitten by an ostrich, right? And there's a video of him going, oh, God, and we've had story after story of what people have been bitten by, right? Just, you can mix that in. Is that offensive to people who are worried about tariffs? I fear that we become policed by ideology that is so sadly lacking in common sense, and more importantly than that, misses the point of what people actually want.
Yeah, and I think it's even worse than that, that we've got into a position in which we assume absolutely no human being is at all resilient, that anything that
or has a sense of humour.
Or has a sense of humour, that anything that might be to their liking is going to put them, might not be to their liking, is going to put them in a position of clinical shock and cause them mental health problems. Just reach for the off button if you don't like it. But what we're seeing in popular culture, I say it's happened with modern Doctor Who now, it's also happened with the catastrophic remake of Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs by Disney, is if you are trying to just communicate a woke message to people, they aren't going to tune in. They aren't going to buy cinema tickets. You are going to lose money. So sooner or later, the popular culture market needs to correct that people want good stories, fun, witticisms.
I thought the irony about that...
occasionally be offensive.
Completely agree.
That's what people want to watch.
I thought the irony, the massive irony about the story that you just said, that appalling Disney woke remake of Sleep... What is it?
Snow White.
Snow White. In their maybe it was well intentioned, but they didn't want to use dwarfs. They thought that was disrespectful and was so they provided. I think the seven dwarfs were replaced by characters AI generated, realistic, enhanced.
The seven mysterious creatures.
Seven mysterious creatures. And completely and utterly hacked off. Did you see all the interviews from dwarf actors saying, now we haven't got the work that we crave? And so this sort of mad sort of desire to... Do you know what this is really interesting to say this to you as the director of popular conservatism. I want to know who these people are, because I obviously live in a cave. Because, I mean, I was at Newcastle Airport last night. I met a squaddy and his wife that just had a baby. He's 24 years of age, fighting to stick up for this country. He thinks the world's gone barking mad. People of my age, I've just been with my best mate in Newcastle, exactly the same. Who are the people that think this woke madness is worth following through? Because I don't know any of them. Maybe, as I say, maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah, Jeremy, it's not you who lives in the cave, it's them. We have a detached, liberal, metropolitan elite who think they know best, who rarely visit Newcastle Airport, certainly never speak to anybody in the armed forces, and are totally detached from the real world. Unfortunately, we find them at the top of filmmaking and broadcasting, and therefore they are pumping out things which equate to their particular predilections and prejudices, but it doesn't land with ordinary people.
Do you think that'll change? Do you think that'll change, Mark?
I think it is beginning to change. I mean, because if you have got shares in these things, if you've got shares in the Disney Corporation, for example, you're going to be asking for some searching questions. about why this catastrophic woke Snow White movie has lost the Disney Corporation probably $200 or $300 million.
And they've stopped. They're not even having premieres because they've so sussed out that this is the biggest turkey ever. And you're right, from a business point of view, would you look at that and go, well, that didn't work because that's not what people want?
Yeah. People want quite traditional fare, really, heroics, quite a bit of patriotism thrown in. If you look at the movies that have done well recently on both sides of the Atlantic, they tend to be of that ilk. I mean, Tom Cruise's remake of Top Gun, absolute smash hit. I mean, it's a straightforward popcorn movie, but it's patriotic. It's got heroes in it. It is not trying to preach to you. And unfortunately, popular culture is no longer in the hands of the woke, often about telling a good story with great characters and a few twists. It's about preaching to you the message. And people are sick and tired of being preached to. That's not what they want to do when they're sitting at home watching television. It's not what they want to spend 10 or 15 quid on a cinema ticket for. And slowly but surely, that lesson is being learnt. Unfortunately, in this Doctor Who case, it's about a quango. We have this BBFC who need to give trigger warnings if they think something's inappropriate or might cause harm or offence. We need to get rid of that. We could do with the Daleks exterminating that quango and quite a few others.
Mate, I don't know where you've been.
Then the market will actually get the sort of things that you and I want to watch. And I suspect you and I are much closer to the median British person than the people who are actually commissioning the trash that is coming out of Hollywood and the BBC at the moment.
I don't know where you've been on my life, but you're absolutely welcome to be on this show anytime. I could not agree with you anymore. And I find it quite inspiring because you do end up, I said to Ryan, it's only 3 days a week, but I come in here full of vitality on a Monday, and within 5 minutes, I'm raging because it's just madness. But an absolute pleasure to have you on. Thank you so much indeed. Mark Littlewood, Director of Popular Conservatism, there on Talk Drive, 20 to 7 almost, if you want to be on. In the next 20 minutes, 0344 499 1000. And Martin Gower on the way, former NHS Trust Chair. You don't even want to know how wound up he is. Back in a jiffy.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
There's a nice lady on from 10, Petri Hoskins. Ahead of that in less than 20 minutes, the legend that is Kev O'Sullivan. 0344 499 1000. Hello to Tim. He says, God help us, Jez, if they try and remake the life of Brian. The funny, honestly, they chase him. John Cleese is Jesus. They chase him. He disappears into his mother's house, and they're outside going, Jesus, Jesus. And she opens the door and says, get rid of me. He's not coming out tonight. He's been a very naughty boy now. Off. It's very funny, but probably would be completely slaughtered if they dared to do it again. This one says, we need Daleks in Parliament. Possibly. Stork. Hello, mate. Bit of an arse, but can you say congratulations to Luke for passing his driving test today? He's a massive fan. Luke, well done, me old son. That's a big ask. How many times... Ryan, how many times did it take you to pass your driving test? First time, Ryan. Special car, big legroom. Amy, have you passed your driving test? Second time for Amy. Ooh. Faith at the controls. How many times? Twice. Men winning. Jeremy Carl, 5th time. Just going to be honest, crap at driving. 0344 499 1000. Louise, you are absolutely right, Jezza. We must not lose our Britishness. That's what made us great. We have always laughed in the face of adversity. Ha ha! Our sense of humour is... Where did that come from? Our sense of humour is what gives us strength against the bad stuff. Louise, if only we all believed we'd get there. Now... On the... Oh, God, this is going to wind me right up again. Martin Gower, former NHS Trust Chair. How are you, sir?
I'm very well, thanks, Jeremy. Thanks for having me on.
I'm not. I'm in a very angry mood today.
Really? I look on this as theft. Theft from the British taxpayer.
Well, let's just explain why you're on, because this is one of the stories that really resonated with the viewers today. We discover, ladies and gentlemen, last week we were talking, you might have listened, you might not, Martin, you've probably got better things to do. This whole debate always about the NHS, 200 billion, we need more money. And we all sit here and we go, well, hold on a minute. Think about these managers and think about the wastage, the astronomical wastage. And last week, Harry Cole from The Sun was able to tell me that the NHS spends 83 million on interpreters, because that had happened in any other country. Today, we discovered, keeping my voice as level as possible, cash-strapped hospitals have written off £256 million owed by foreign patients because of failures to properly check they were entitled to NHS treatment in the first place. An investigation shows escalating deaths from health tourists who have had everything from spinal surgery to heart care and cancer treatment. This is creating this black hole. We had the excellent Isabelle Oakshot on, who said in any other country in the world, if you went into the hospital, you'd have to give them your debit card. Why are we so soft, Martin? We're skint, man.
Well, apart from anything else, Jeremy, they don't really have the mechanism to do it. Because this is a taxpayer-funded service, and nobody else has a taxpayer-funded service. They may have a statutory insurance, but everything is costed and everything is paid for. I mean, the average person who goes into hospital has not a clue what their treatment has cost at all. So it's kind of complacency. Oh well, we'll deal with that. No problem.
But it's also ideology, isn't it? Because if I'm in any other country in the world right now, okay, and I get ill, I'm not going to get it free. I'm going to, whether I've got travel insurance or medical insurance, or I'm going to have to give them my debit card. That is a fact. This country led the way. I get the health service, the benefit system, two of the greatest inventions in the modern world. But Martin, it's also fair to say, and you're a former NHS Trust Chair, if it doesn't provide in its finances what it was set out to do for the very people that pay to make it happen, because in part it's giving it to people who shouldn't be getting it, then shame on every single one of whoever's this organisation that this is being allowed to happen, because very much like all of our public services right now, they're not going to the people who are paying for it. And that doesn't make sense.
But Jeremy, we're so kind, you see.
But
we're very kind.
Listen, I've only got 40 minutes. Yeah, we're very kind, but not to a lot of people who we should be kind to.
No,
and that's not an unfair comment, is it?
No, this is why I said at the outset it's theft. Because it's not just the fact that this money hasn't come to the NHS and it's therefore being demanded of the British taxpayer. It has actually cheated people who should have had those services. It's pushed them down the line. It's held up the waiting list. It's done all of those sorts of things. And it's a kind of strange attitude is that jolly foreigner, and I'm sorry to use the phrase, must be given priority because there is this risk that if we don't, we'll be accused of racism, jingoism and all the rest.
Well, my point to you is, and I would say this very calmly, and I think that there are many instances, and we can lead with the immigration argument, where people are saying or beginning to have the confidence to have these conversations that they wouldn't have done. I am really, and always was really happy for Great Britain, the United Kingdom, whatever it was, when it could afford to help people. But now, whether it's the NHS, the benefit system, the welfare state, it's almost anything, we seem to prioritise, and that's my word, priority really, we seem to prioritise everybody, and I get accused of all sorts of things for saying this, over people who have lived here and have paid their stamp. We seem to prioritise criminals over victims. We seem to prioritise illegal migrants over people. I cannot, as a 60-year-old soon man, sit here and think that there are pensioners who were freezing this winter, and yet you can jump on a plane and have a back operation and bugger off back to wherever you've come from, and we'll pick up the tab. Doesn't make sense.
Well, I tell you what I do. I do a couple of things definitely to try and address this. If these people have come from a country that we're giving aid to, I would definitely deduct any debts that anybody of citizens of that country owe us from that aid. That would be a first step. So if there's 100,000 owed to us from people, say, from Nigeria, then whatever our aid budget is for them, 100,000, 200,000, whatever it is, we knock it off and say you can retrieve that if you want the money within your own country. They're your citizens. They've come here and they've cheated on us. They never. These people. Do you think, Jeremy, these people ever intended to pay?
Yeah,
I don't think so.
And I don't understand the, you know, the people who would be offended by the conversation we're having, and I always feel like saying, but if it was your mother or your father or your child or your grandmother who missed out on cancer treatment or a life-saving operation, or your grandmother broke her hip and was 9 hours on the floor on a hospital trolley, but seemingly, I'm not like that, but I do believe that the British people are at their wits' end, Martin.
I think there is increasing resentment, and there is this sense that the British people are, I mean, there's the whole thing of Westminster City Council making people go through a quiz. I don't know whether you've seen it, about enter the answer to this quiz to decide whether you are a white supremacist or not, white privileged, sorry. And I
don't care about the colour of your skin. I keep saying it. I have every single night when I haven't got my car, I get driven. I've told many people this story, but it's amazing. I had him last night from there. He's a Bangladeshi kid. He's been over here for 40 years. His dad brought him. They have built a successful business. They pay the taxes. He's proud to be in this country. He's appalled by people who come here and get something for nothing. He's also appalled by the people who live here and sponge, and that's also a relevant point. And he's taught his kids the same as his father's taught him, and he's one of my dearest friends. This is not about anything other than, if you pay for it, you should get it. If you don't, stop ripping us off, and we need to do something about it.
And Jeremy, if you or I were in France or Germany, and we said, look, I've got a bit of a pain in my chest. I think I need a heart operation, and we go and see the local doc, and there's no way that we will be able to get that treatment on a normal routine process surgical program. There's no way we'll get that treatment without actually paying for it, and we'd have to pay for it up front.
Mate, I couldn't agree more. I could talk to you all night, you know I could, Martin. It's always an absolute pleasure. We'll keep fighting the fight, my friend. Martin Gower, former NHS Trust Chair. Thank you to him. 10 to 7, this is Talk Drive.
Alison Pearson's article in the last few days has been viewed hundreds of thousands, if not million times now. And I think it's a brilliant, brilliant article because it sets out in so much detail exactly what happened to Lucy. And I think it's impossible to get to the end of that article and not feel devastated on a personal level for what's happened to her, but also quite disturbed by how the criminal justice system has handled the situation.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
344 499 1000. Kev is here in 6 minutes. I want to get a couple of calls in. Tom is in Rugby. You're on Talk Drive, Tom. Couple of minutes. What you got, pal?
The NHS every year poaches thousands of doctors, nurses and midwives from poor developing countries overseas and takes them to this country to prop up our ailing health service. OK, maybe some of them do come over here to be treated, but by golly, we don't have profit from poaching their staff. You know, there are some communities over in Nigeria that have no midwives because they're all over here working. They can earn much more, and who can blame them? But
how do you solve that problem, Tom?
We need to start training our own staff properly. There hasn't been a proper staff development programme in the NHS for decades.
Well, I'll tell you what I'd do. I would train them, and then I would make them sign a contract that said they had to stay for a while rather than go private. Can I ask you, though, very, very briefly, it's not right, the money that we're losing, is it? It's not right at all.
Not. It's not at all, but it's equally not right that we should poach staff from these poorer countries.
I couldn't agree more, my friend. Thank you for your call. He's in Rugby. Good evening, Jeremy. Margaret, currently in Tunisia. My Tunisian husband is applying for his UK visa. Part of the application is to pay currently $3,000 to the NHS, whether he will need it or not. So how the hell are other people getting away with it? Stalk. Thanks, legend. David Hills. Hang on, JK. If that bloke is an ex-NHS Trust chair, then wasn't he part of the problem? He should have addressed it when he had the power. Now he's an armchair critic. I'll bet he'll use the excuse, I tried but failed because of bureaucracy. Might well be a very, very valid excuse, to be fair. Richard in London, final call, 2 minutes. What you got, kiddo?
Hi, Jeremy. Yeah, and I just think when you talked about what the lady said on social media and obviously got into trouble, I think it's worth making the point, Jeremy. Things in the post-war period...
Can I just say to people who are tuning in, this is Lucy Connolly, given 31 months for some pretty disgusting rhetoric online. Our point today is, you know, not because she's a mother, but is that not two-tier policing? Because today a jihadi bride who left the United Kingdom to go to Syria to join ISIS is allowed back because she's got herself a left-wing lawyer who said she needs medical care and she's got a son. That's two-tier justice by anybody's standards.
And the thing is, Jeremy, I think J.D. Vance is right. People across the world are looking at the UK and saying, is it a place where there's free speech? Because, frankly, the politicians changed our laws on free speech starting in the 1970s, and we've just accepted it. And I'll just say two things to you. You're talking about growth and tariffs. Why would anybody want to stay in a country where their free speech is limited? And you've been talking about on Talk Radio recently about do we have to fight Putin? Why would anybody fight for a country where there isn't enough free speech?
It's interesting for me, just to finish today, and I might well be wrong, but for me it's almost about how we are now as to how we were. So the United Kingdom was always a leader, financially, morally. We're not in that position now. And without wanting to sound in any way unfair, I think with the situation we are in, we need to concentrate on our own people. Richard in London, thank you very much indeed. Thank you to everybody for calling today. I mean, obviously, Kev's now going to come in and he's going to want to talk. I'm so bored of tariffs. So bored that I did... Have you heard the Boris Johnson story?
I've been in with the EMU.
Yes. Yeah. We think it was, in fact, an anti-Brexiteer dressed up as an ostrich. But did you...
is that emu is an anti-net zero nutter, you know, because obviously Boris Johnson is a net zero nutter.
I couldn't agree more. I used to stick up for him, but the more you find out about the fact that he was part of the net zero madness, however, do not fear. I want to just break. We've got 2 minutes, which is a long time for us. I know you're more intelligent than me. Why doesn't this government go? Trump's going to do what he's doing for the American people. We've got a 10% tariff against Europe, who's got 20%. Why don't we make it easier for businesses by dropping this NI rubbish? Forget this workers' rights. Let's make British business successful. Let's build things, employ people, and then say to the world, look, we're competitive. Buy that. Why are we stuck in this reactive, the world's going to blow up because Donald Trump's this, that? Why aren't we able to make ourselves good again?
Well, we certainly should be able to, given that we got a nice easy ride on the tariff front. Although the situation really is this, that basically Donald Trump gave nearly every country 2 black eyes and gave us 1 black eye. But we still should be able to do better than, for example, the EU out of that. And I agree with you about tariffs. I'm not doing anything on it tonight. I mean, they're there, get used to it. And in the end, it's this. We were charging, for example, this is just our deal with America. We were charging America 10% on all American goods that were being sold in Britain, so 10%. And when we sent our goods to America, how much were they charging us? 1.3%.
Yeah, precisely.
1.3%.
He got elected saying that.
So